Yu Ziya transmigrates into a fantasy world and becomes a minor figure of the righteous faction, the Taijuan Holy Land. He possesses heaven-defying comprehension, yet is born with an ordinary mortal body. At this moment, a system is activated. As long as he creates cultivation techniques and spreads them to others, he can obtain rewards and defy fate itself. A mortal body worse than a dog? Then I'll use this mortal body to slaughter gods and prove the Tao. However, as more techniques are created, the entire Holy Land starts to feel less and less righteous. You created the Sunflower Manual and taught it to your disciples. 10,000 disciples castrated themselves, their cultivation skyrocketed. Reward, Bull Demon Kidney. You created 3 heads and 6 arms and taught it to your disciples. 100,000 disciples installed tiger heads, wolf heads, and for killing arms. Divine powers perfected. Reward, True Dragon Heart. You created the Taiyin Jade Maiden Heart Sutra and taught it to the Holy Sun. The Holy Sun turned into a woman. Combat power greatly increased. Reward, Tao Fusion Flower. You created 1 Che transforms into 3 pure ones and taught it to a great emperor. The emperor mentally tortured himself every day, eventually splitting into 3 people to research. Separately, the mortal arts perfected. Ding! The number of cultivators has reached 10 million. Reward, Supreme Immortal Weapon, Chaos Immortal Bell. Several years later, the demonic factions launch a siege against the Righteous Alliance. Not a single normal person among them, and you're telling me these are the righteous ones, facing tens of millions of insane, grotesque disciples. The demonic cultivators completely collapse, kneel to the ground, and beg for mercy. Immortal Emperor Yi, please stop creating cultivation techniques. Taijuan Holy Land. Inside the main hall, the Taijuan Holy Lord looked down at the group of injured young disciples below him and sighed. His gaze pierced through the hall's doorway, looking towards the direction of the Heavenly Master Holy Land, his eyes filled with longing. The autumn wind was bleak, the sun setting in the west. Time had not passed long, and he had already begun to mourn that little fellow who drank tea and chased birds. This is already the 6th group of disciples who have fled back. The Yin-Yang sect is simply too arrogant. They killed so many of my Taijuan disciples. I beg the Holy Lord to summon a saint to take action and slaughter those demonic brats. The red-faced elder angrily slammed the railing and shouted. Originally, Taijuan disciples wouldn't have been hunted down so brutally. But the Yin-Yang sect was becoming increasingly insane, not hesitating to massacre cities, sacrifice living beings, cultivate forbidden demonic techniques, disregard the fluctuations in cultivation realms, and drastically increase their own strength. This directly widened the gap in strength between the 2 sides by a huge margin. Taijuan's disciples, lacking this demonic power, were no match for him and could only flee desperately. In the eyes of these young disciples, even those who had been training outside a few years ago were forced to flee, suffering heavy casualties along the way. A saint? Do you think the Yin-Yang sect has no saints? If a large-scale war truly broke out, who do you think would lose between the 2 opposing sides? The Saint Lord glanced at him, his expression grim. Between the righteous and demonic factions, the high-ranking officials did not interfere in the killing between disciples. This was an unspoken rule. Whichever saint jumped in first would be unlucky. The one who interfered in the Blood Cave trial, the old demon Dali, had already been strangled to death by the blood god ancestor, and was probably already on his way to the underworld, enjoying the Mang Po soup. Didn't the He-Huan ancestor already descend to the mortal world, enjoying a carefree life? Another elder said in a low voice, still unwilling to accept the situation. The elite disciples of Taijuan, on their way to the Heavenly Master's Holy Land, encountered an assassination attempt. They had already received the news. The one who attacked was a traitor of our Taijuan. That old demon dared to personally intervene. His corpse must have long since rotted away. The Holy Master snorted coldly. It's my incompetence. I was no match for them. Among the crowd, a young man, stained with dried blood, knelt on one knee, speaking shamefully. His name was Li Kun, a young prodigy of the same age as the Yin-Yang sect's Kaji. The other young men beside him also bowed their heads, their faces showing embarrassment. Well, it's good that they returned alive. We'll talk about it again when Ziya returns. The Holy Master sighed softly. In fact, this kind of fatal incident wasn't a one-time occurrence. It happened many times. The difference from before was that with the Xiaoyao evil divine ability, there was a chance to turn defeat into victory. Little ancestor, is the divine ability he created really that powerful? Li Kun asked doubtfully. Having fought against the Yin-Yang sect for so many years, he knew exactly how powerful their demonic cultivation was. The characteristic of demonic cultivation was that the cultivation speed was faster than the righteous path, and the overall cultivation level was much stronger than theirs. He couldn't imagine what kind of cultivation method could compare to demonic cultivation and simultaneously reverse the course of the battle. Little ancestor, he seems to be only 8 years old, right? When I left the sacred land, he was only 5. The young men beside him looked at each other, vaguely remembering the little boy from 3 years ago who spent his days chasing birds and playing with fish. Apart from having slightly stronger comprehension, there was nothing special about him. Regarding the news about the Blood Cave trial, they had only vaguely heard that the young master had seemingly created several cultivation techniques and then been relentlessly hunted down. How could they know the specific and detailed situation? Having him is a stroke of luck for our Taijuan sect. Otherwise, you wouldn't even have a chance to turn the tables. Elder Bai, Yi Xiaoyao's caretaker and bodyguard, sighed, feeling extremely envious. So many of his fellow disciples had died in that generation. If Yi Xiaoyao had created cultivation techniques at this time, he would have long since crushed the Yin-Yang sect. The Holy Lord and the elders have such faith in the young master. The young men looked at the elders' expressions, seeing their approval, and were all shocked. They were curious about what kind of cultivation techniques the young master had created. Holy Lord, when we returned to that time, we saw a graveyard. What happened? Li Kun seemed to remember something and hesitantly asked. This question had troubled him for a long time. I also want to know, back then, my small courtyard was destroyed by someone. It turned into a graveyard. There were also several corpses nearby. Another young man remained silent for a long time before cautiously speaking. They had fled all the way to the Holy Land, been led in by Elder Bai, and without returning to their respective caves, rushed to the main hall to report to the Holy Lord. Along the way, they had spotted a graveyard. Cypress trees stood beside the graveyard, and several funeral garments and corpses hung from their branches. Paper money lay scattered on the ground. A cool breeze blew gently. Is the bass okay? They were bewildered, doubting whether they had entered the underworld. This frightened them so much that they repeatedly looked towards Elder Bai, who was leading the way. At one point, they thought he was Bai Wucheng. The Holy Lord remained silent for a long time, then calmly said, "This is not a corpse, it is your junior brother." The young men. In the sacred land of the Heavenly Master, following the passage of a Heavenly Master, more than half of the major forces have dispersed, leaving no shortage of Qingleng. However, a few forces remain. For example, Qingyun sect, the angelic investor Li Feng, and several other families. However, the strange thing is, they are not staying at their respective headquarters. They directly set up tents outside the Heavenly Master Scripture Repository, occasionally looking towards the repository's gate, afraid of missing anything. Old Ji, who had just returned, was very vigilant. He suspected these guys were planning a robbery. Only when he saw Yi Xiaoyao on the 4th floor did he understand, and he couldn't help but fall silent. Those people are constantly staring at the scripture repository, which makes me feel very insecure. Jizan looked at Yi Xiaoyao lying on the rattan chair. Since the fire spirit young master left, the disciples of the major forces have been cultivating the empty sword technique. They all achieved success with the demon eye of law-breaking. It was like they were high on drugs, unable to control themselves. They clamored for their elders to bring rare treasures, begging the Taijuan ancestor to bestow upon them divine abilities. There was no way around it. Yi Xiaoyao's divine abilities were cultivated too quickly. Cultivating other techniques felt like a slow turtle crawling, unbelievably slow. However, Yi Xiaoyao had entered the scripture repository and spent his days reading, never showing himself. They could only wait. Fortunately, during that time, Yi Xiaoyao gave them several Earth-level divine abilities. Of course, the price was considerable, with various rare and powerful elixirs offered. Even so, they were still overjoyed. Divine abilities were different from elixirs. They could be passed down for millennia. They are only at the Dao-slaying realm. Can they really break through? Yi Xiaoyao gnawed on a fruit, looking at the ancient book in his hand, not even lifting his head. First, Then, after a few days, he remembered everything perfectly. I'm not afraid of thieves stealing, but I'm afraid of thieves coveting. Old man Ji snorted coldly. He glanced at the fruit in Yi Xiaoyao's left hand, his envy overwhelming. This was the Qingyuan fruit, which had the effect of increasing cultivation. Even he, a master alchemist, couldn't help but feel a pang of envy. A powerful medicine, given his status, would require considerable effort to obtain. Yet this young man, lying down, has someone bring him such a powerful medicine. He doesn't even need it. Comparing oneself to others is infuriating. Ah! Yi Xiaoyao let out a sigh, ignoring it, and activated the Chaos Immortal Demon technique, digesting the medicinal power. Having consumed the powerful medicine, his cultivation had already reached the peak of the spirit realm. Just a little more and he could enter the origin realm. This speed was unparalleled in ancient and modern times. At the same time, he narrowed his eyes and looked at the ancient book Essentials of Ghost Divine Techniques Cultivation in his hand. Recently, he had been researching Ghost Divine Techniques, attempting to find a method for condensing and transforming remnant souls into ghost cultivation techniques. Ding, look at the 38 Ghost Divine Techniques and 19 types of Cursed Divine Techniques. You have gained great insight and integrated them. You have created the Ghost Divine Technique Ghost Dice. Demon Dice, beginner level spirit realm, demonic spell, dice determine the outcome. The loser is either immortal or crippled. Not betting is equivalent to admitting defeat. Your probability of winning is 70%. The enemy's probability of winning is 30%. Just by expending hundreds of millions of luck points, you can successfully cultivate it. Spiritual level. Yi Xiaoyao was slightly startled, his eyes revealing a mixture of fear and joy. 10 days had passed since the departure of the fire spirit young master, and he had spent countless days and nights in the scripture repository, studying ancient texts and creating more than 20 divine abilities along the way. His current foundation was incredibly profound, and his understanding of divine abilities was far superior to that of the Taijuan realm, surpassing even the saints. The Buddha Golden Body, Dragon Tiger Divine Technique, and 9 Steps of Divine Shadow were constantly being perfected. Yet, he still struggled to create a spiritual level ability. Now, finally, a spiritual level ability had emerged. This level of divine ability transcended the realm of mortal, falling between the mortal and the saint. It relied not only on true essence but also on the control of the heaven and earth's vital energy, its power far exceeding that of the heavenly level. However, this Ghost Tao divine ability is rather peculiar, Yi Xiaoyao muttered. Rolling dice with others, strangling demons, their divine abilities were on the same path, merging curses, in a sense, considered a form of curse-killing technique. The difference was that one was a demon's cultivation, the other a living person's. Truly a gambling demon? As for the consumption of hundreds of millions of luck points, he simply ignored it. Since they had both become demons, what was there to fear about bad luck? With this divine ability, demon cultivators could avoid being suppressed by lightning-type and yang-type divine abilities. They wouldn't fight, they'd gamble directly. If they lost, they'd die. Yi Xiaoyao suppressed his joy and continued reading the book in his hand. Beside him, Old Ji looked at Yi Xiaoyao, then glanced at Feng Queer, who was angrily patting his shoulder. Don't forget, you'll marry my girl in the future. Old Ji already considered Yi Xiaoyao his grandson-in-law, always feeling that this young man was trying to get closer. He regretted letting Ji Xiaoyan go into seclusion. Now was the time to cultivate a relationship with Yi Xiaoyao. These kinds of troublemakers are gone, and I'm still cultivating them. Rest assured, I'm a fairly single-minded person. Your granddaughter is beautiful, and I like beautiful things. I'd rather kill the wrong person than let her go, Yi Xiaoyao said calmly. Old man Ji gasped, feeling an urge to kill this brat. Those words were too offensive. It felt like a good cabbage being trampled by a pig. He pointed at Feng Queer and asked, is she also one? Who is? I don't like him at all. Feng Queer's small face flushed red, angrily saying, rest assured, although this woman has enough beauty, her brain isn't very effective. I don't like idiots, Yi Xiaoyao said calmly again. Screech. Feng Queer widened her peach blossom eyes and bit Yi Xiaoyao's face. Yi Xiaoyao's skin was practically impenetrable, and Feng Queer's teeth ached from the bite, causing her to cry loudly. See, I told you she was brainless, but she still wouldn't accept it. She knew I was thick-skinned and still bit me. Yi Xiaoyao shrugged. Double quotes. This, the daughter of the ancient emperor. I didn't expect this. Alas, what a pity. Seeing this, old man Ji was dumbfounded, then shook his head and left with his hands clasped behind his back. Clearly, he was relieved. As soon as he left the scripture repository, the angry roars of the chubby den saint and a group of alchemy masters could be heard. We've been searching for you for over 10 days, and finally caught you. You caused me to be struck by lightning for 7 days. Old villain, leave your life behind. A deafening crash echoed outside, the ground shaking violently, and the sound of old man Ji being violently beaten could be heard, with Lian screaming in agony. Yi Jiaoya's creation. It has nothing to do with my son. Bah, serves him right. Yi Xiaoyao scoffed disdainfully. This old man from the Ji family was truly worthless. He kindly taught him alchemy, and then betrayed him. He continued reading. Time passed. In the blink of an eye, it was time to return to Taijuan. Yi Xiaoyao had memorized all the books in the Heavenly Master's Sacred Land Scripture Repository, so he could study them later when he had plenty of time. Yi Xiaoyao sat on the golden-winged great ROC, while the Taijuan Saint's son, Little Diamond, and others beside him looked excited. After half a month of cultivation, they had all broken through to the spirit realm. They were eager to return to Taijuan. And while they were at it, they would teach those bastards from the Yin-Yang sect a lesson. The welcome they received was completely different from the one they had received earlier. In front of the Heavenly Master's Sacred Lands mountain gate, countless people crowded together to see him off. 8 great sacred lands, the Carefree Saint, Elder Ji, Master Zhang, and many disciples of the Heavenly Master's Sacred Land. Also present were the Kenyun sect, the Angel sect, the Great Heavenly Gate, and other major forces. This enormous and joyful farewell procession surpassed any competition in ancient or modern times. The reason, naturally, was the divine power that Yi Xiaoyao had imparted. His current status was extremely special, deeply valued by the great sacred lands and forces. It could be said that Yi Xiaoyao had won this competition decisively. Xiaoyao, come often in the future, the Qingfeng Saint Lord said with a warm smile. Although Guangling Jun showed no expression, his eyes were filled with admiration. You are more outstanding than your father. You will not be disappointed in the future. The others, hearing this, were all helpless. Yi Nanshan, Yi Xiaoya's father, and his group, after resolving Yi Xiaoya's lifespan and mortal body issues, stormed into the dark forbidden zone and haven't come out since. As for which forbidden zone it was, rumors are divided. Some say it's the underworld city, others say it's the land of gentle fragrance. This kid is full of ulterior motives. He's getting a bad deal. The gray-robed old man from the Emperor's Hill Holy Land chuckled. The crowd burst into laughter. This time they had truly experienced Yi Xiaoyao's tactics. During the competition, he had thoroughly outsmarted the leaders of the 9 great holy lands. Old man, don't forget your bet hasn't been fulfilled yet. I'm looking forward to your granddaughter, Yi Xiaoyao said calmly. Ha ha ha, indeed, he didn't get a bad deal. Kid, you'd better get his granddaughter. She's the older sister of the Sun and Moon Holy Sun, known as the most beautiful woman in the Emperor's Hill Holy Land, with unparalleled talent. The 9 Nether Immortal, enjoying the spectacle, laughed heartily. The Sun and Moon Saint Sun, standing far away, had a dark expression on his face. The gray-robed old man's skin trembled, and he felt a terrible headache. He had only spoken casually at the time, not expecting the Taijuan Holy Land to actually win the top prize. He didn't know how he would explain this to his great-grandson. He feared he would have a major conflict with Yi Xiaoyao at the 9 Left Phoenix Clan's grand banquet. That's enough, the Qingfeng Saint Lord said with an unfriendly gaze. This was clearly an attempt to steal their Heavenly Master Holy Land's future son-in-law. Yi Xiaoyao will fight another day. Su Fengliu shouted, his eyes blazing. He had been very angry lately. Ooh. As he finished speaking, several young women looked at Su Fengliu's face and immediately vomited. Su Fengliu's face was full of black lines, making him even more furious. He had initially wanted to seduce a group of beautiful young women at the Heavenly Master Holy Land, but now everyone who saw him vomited. He's a bit weak, making him feel like a recluse. Ha ha. Yi Xiaoyao didn't bother paying attention to this guy. Farewell, everyone. Three-eyed true monarch clasped his hands. The golden winged great ROC spread its wings and took Yishao, the Taijuan saint's son, and the others away. The crowd watched Taijuan and his group leave. I wonder what kind of storm will erupt when we return to Taijuan and stand before the Yin-Yang sect. Qingfeng Saint Lord sighed, lost in thought. This was a fight between juniors. They couldn't interfere. From what they saw, Taijuan disciples were completely defeated, and the Yin-Yang sect disciples were already fighting like madmen. The disciples of Taijuan are likely to suffer a terrible fate. Relying solely on earth-level and heaven-level divine abilities, it's difficult to reverse the situation. We can only slightly mitigate the decline. Venerable Zhen Kong shook his head. Heaven-level divine abilities currently offer little help to those in the Dao integration realm. We should block information about those divine abilities, hoping to catch the Yin-Yang sect disciples off guard, Guangling Jun said. After he finished speaking, everyone was stunned, realizing he was right. Those underworld divine abilities, while unstoppable, could certainly scare away a group of Yin-Yang sect disciples. I almost forgot, you few should cultivate secret techniques, concealing your aura, and go to Taijuan Holy Land to have Yizhao guide your cultivation. While you're at it, help Taijuan Holy Land hunt down some Yin-Yang sect disciples. Just don't let your identities be discovered. The Holy Lord then patted his head, pointing at Zhang Tianyan and the other 8 holy sons. Before the ancient grand feast, he wanted to do his best to increase the strength of these young fellows, lest they be looked down upon later. For this, the 9 great holy lands had shed blood, giving Yishao no shortage of benefits. Zhang Tianyan, Su Fengliu, and the holy son of Emperor Qi were all silent, their faces filled with displeasure. Having Yishao guide their cultivation, it felt strange somehow, especially Su Fengliu, who was so angry he wanted to spit blood. Meanwhile, on the other side, a cry of surprise rang out from the golden-winged great ROC. The old corpse, the demon shadow immortal, and hundreds of other ghosts emerged from their ghost bags. Hearing the air of freedom, before they could show any excitement, they were stunned by Yi Zhayao's words. I just got out of prison and you're already using me as a shield. Don't trick me. Don't worry, I won't let you down. I'll impart to you divine abilities, powerful divine abilities, to help you seize an opportunity to enter the ranks of the Heavenly Master sect, Yi Xiaoyao said with a smile. Isn't this better than you guys sweeping away the gangs for the Heavenly Master Holy Land? The golden winged great ROC was on his back. A gust of cold wind blew, and the stench of decaying corpses lingered, 100 ghosts crammed together in one place. The little diamond and his group were overwhelmed by the stench, their heads spinning and their vision blurring, so they quickly moved away. But the ghosts, upon hearing Yi Zhayao's words, were like being struck by lightning, their eyes wide with shock. They had initially thought the Heavenly Master's sacred land had shown great kindness, offering them a free tour. Master, sweeping away the gangs is better than losing our lives. Although we were strong when we were alive, we're all weaklings now, unable to withstand the onslaught of demonic cultivators. The old corpse was almost wetting his pants in fear. Especially him, a Taoist cultivator who had been abandoned by heaven, unloved by his grandmother and uncle. If he were to become a drought demon, he could be struck by lightning halfway through his cultivation. Not to mention fighting against a group of demonic cultivators, they are naturally weaker. The highest cultivation level here is only at the Dao integration realm. Those old ghosts at the Dao severing realm are practically dead. Now I finally understand why. Especially my mother. And she's still very young. When I was alive, I was a supreme elder of the Yin-Yang sect. Although my memories are incomplete, I understand this sect better than anyone else here. The Yin-Yang sect's harmonious flame uses the 7 emotions and 6 desires as a guide to burn the soul. It's too easily suppressed. A handsome middle-aged ghost sighed, his gloomy ghost face contorting uncontrollably, scaring everyone into a pulp. Brother Yu is right. Within the same realm, neither of us ghosts can necessarily defeat the other. Old Ghost Yu immediately knelt down, weeping profusely. Their realms weren't low when they were alive. Some were even famous figures. But they've all died once. Knowing that love is admirable, life is more precious. The old man cherishes his life. Moreover, demonic divine abilities are even rarer than righteous divine abilities. If a person were immortal, who would bother researching such things? If not like this, I have a descendant named Yaoji. She's unpredictable, possessing the bone of heavenly charm. Whatever state you want, she can transform into it. Mature woman, young lady, lowly, no problem. The handsome old ghosty winked at Yi Xiaoyao, giving him a knowing look. Yaoji is the saintess of this generation, only 16 years old, currently in seclusion. If she matures, her charm will be even more terrifying than Kaji. If Kaji can arouse physical desire, then Yaoji will directly attack the soul. Whatever type you like, they could all be found on her person. Bah! Feng Queer snorted contemptuously, pouting. Tisk, that legendary demoness. Is she his descendant? Little Diamond gasped. Legend says the demoness first appeared when she was chosen as the new saintess. That day, the entire Yin-Yang sect went crazy. If it weren't for the fact that her ancestor was a certain figure from the Gentle Fragrance sect, deeply valued, she would have long been snatched away and become their sole possession. I'm not interested. Right now, I only want the Yin-Yang sect to pay a terrible price. Yi Xiaoyao's eyes were indifferent. No matter how great his charm, as long as they were his enemies, he wouldn't spare them. Seeing this, the demons all felt a chill. At this moment, Yi Xiaoyao was completely different from before. His icy demeanor seemed capable of freezing their very souls. They dared not speak further, only showing bitter expressions. They felt their lives were utterly bleak. This is the demonic Dao divine technique, the demon dice spell. I'm imparting it to you. It's enough to deal with those disciples of the Yin-Yang sect. Yi Xiaoyao took out a piece of paper and slowly wrote down the cultivation method and techniques of the divine technique. This, is it reliable? The old corpse hesitated, not daring to step forward. Old Ghosty was also skeptical. They had heard that this Taijuan ancestor had extraordinary talent, but he wasn't a ghost, so how could he create a demonic Dao divine technique? The species were different. A ghost cultivating curse techniques? Three-Eyed True Monarch was also stunned, his face filled with emotion, even more so than Yi Xiaoyao's creation of 100 divine techniques. Living people, if they had talent, could cultivate curse techniques. A dead person cultivating the demonic Dao. He had never heard of any ghost that could cultivate curses. There's fundamentally no such thing as demonic Dao curse techniques in this world. Ziyao, don't joke around. You know what demonic Dao curse techniques mean, don't you? If it were spread, no one could guarantee what would happen. Three-Eyed True Monarch urgently warned. The first of the 8 great dark forbidden zones, the underworld city, is full of ghosts. If they were unleashed, the entire Qingyuan realm would be shaken more than an earthquake. It's all right. It's not a great emperor-level curse. Yizia waved his hand. Three-Eyed True Monarch's expression fluctuated, but he ultimately said nothing more. He handed the proclamation paper to the old corpse, instructing them to study it carefully. Yizia didn't interfere further, closing his eyes. He mentally selected a novel on demonic arts and carefully studied it. The demonic path story was signed. I have 1,380 demon wives. Demonic path curse technique. How can it sound so unbelievable? From the mythological era to now, I've never heard of such a divine ability. The old corpse accepted the proclamation, staring at the contents repeatedly. The other old ghosts, having no other choice, had to come closer to examine it carefully. Since the Taijuan group had spoken, they couldn't help but regret coming. Wouldn't it have been better to just lie peacefully in their coffins? They didn't expect it to be that powerful. As long as it didn't harm their souls, that would have been enough. But very quickly, the old ghosts' expressions turned serious, their eyes filled with shock. They were all seasoned veterans, their perspectives not low during their lives. Whether this divine ability could be cultivated was still something they could discern. Could it really be true? The Shadow Demon Lord was filled with uncertainty. The cultivation method itself is fine, but this dice rolling, gambling with enemies, seems rather unusual. I've encountered curses in my life, but I've never heard of dice rolling with someone. The old ghosts chattered loudly, their faces contorted with disgust. They simply couldn't imagine the scene. Even I, an old ghost, find it bizarre. Old Ghosty expressed his bewilderment. However, he was deeply shaken. Having cultivated to sainthood in his lifetime and become a ghost after death, he had existed in this world for at least 7,000 or 8,000 years, and had never seen anything so strange. If it hadn't come from the hands of the Taijuan ancestor, he would even suspect some scoundrel had insulted his noble ghost research. Old Lee, why don't you try it? The Shadow Demon Lord pointed his finger. He poked the old corpse, smacking his lips. Why don't you try? The old corpse, having been stabbed in the back by his old friend, was now furious. This guy was really something else. You're thick-skinned and fat. He and the other old ghosts kept stabbing him in the back. They really didn't have the courage to try. They weren't afraid of wasting their luck. They were all ghosts. What did they care about bad luck? They were worried that this divine ability might be somehow strange. If it vanished into thin air, wouldn't that be a wrongful death? Damn it, I have to cultivate sooner or later. I'll take a gamble, and then I'll firmly hold onto this Taijuan little ancestor's leg, and later I'll hang on him as a ornament. The old corpse stared at Yishaya with dry eyes, gritting his teeth. If you want to cling to someone's leg, you have to set an example. If you succeed, you can get involved in whatever business ventures you want, follow the Taijuan group, enjoy good food and drink, marry the pink skull, and reach the pinnacle of ghostly existence. If you fail, you'll be reborn far away from the Taijuan group in your next life. The group's first creation of Ghost Tao Divine techniques is truly remarkable. Let's take a good look at how they cultivate them. Little Diamond, Wang Li, and the others widened their eyes in curiosity. It was truly hard to imagine how a living group could create Ghost Tao Divine techniques. They practiced mourning, burial, and ultimately, it was living people cultivating. Crack! The old corpse separated a piece of bone from its groin and began refining it with ghost fire. It condensed into 3 dice-sized pieces, each about the size of a fingertip. Square, then marked with several dots. A total of 6 sides, 1 to 6 dots. This, using his own bones as dice, this little group's divine abilities are becoming more and more outrageous. A monster. I seriously underestimated this little group's level of prodigy. One wouldn't know, but they'd think this old corpse was a statue. This handiwork is amazing. King Chen Nangshuan praised, completely impressed by the little group. Wang Zhen looked at the smooth, uniformly sized pieces and was even more amazed. This old corpse was definitely a good material for sculpting. A dry tree statue? This divine ability is too illogical. When I was alive, I cultivated demonic divine abilities for many years, always targeting others, never targeting myself. A suicidal divine ability, absolutely undeniable. The other old ghosts felt uneasy, becoming even more insecure about this divine ability. This divine power dice, along with the dice themselves, requires materials related to oneself, such as the physical body, bones, or soul. Of course, others can also be used, as long as they are refined into oneself. That's what's needed. 3 dice are complete. The old corpse then took out a piece of bone from his body and crafted another dice cup. Round and smooth like jade, it was indeed exquisitely beautiful. It's truly amazing. The tactile sensation is definitely superb. Wang Zhen, Wang Li, and the others couldn't help but want to snatch it and admire it. These Taijuan disciples aren't normal at all. My hip bones are practically breaking. Thinking of breaking walnuts. The old corpse, seeing the Taijuan disciples' eyes shining, couldn't help but curse inwardly. Having lived for so many years, he had never seen such extraordinary disciples of a sacred land. And they were only 11 or 12 years old? Let's try cultivating it. The old demons began to encourage the old corpse. Their curiosity reached its peak. Let's give it a try. The old corpse made a firm decision, throwing the dice into the dice cup, rolling up his sleeves, and beginning to shake his hand. His cultivation technique circulated within his body, causing the dice in the dice cup to clang wildly. Who wants to fight me? He shouted. I'll go. Three-Eyed True Monarch remained silent for a moment, but couldn't suppress his curiosity any longer and stepped forward. This dice-rolling, cursed ghost Tao technique was truly bizarre. He really wanted to see it for himself. All right, 3 dice, bet on big or small. True Monarch, bet big or small. The old corpse pulled out a silver mat from his storage bag. There was also a long chair, and with a thud, 1 foot was kicked up onto it, and he slammed his hand on the table and shouted loudly. 3 dice, 3 to 10 is small, 11 to 18 is big. Damn, that's unfair. This old geezer was definitely a gambler when he was alive. He can roll as big as he wants, but our Supreme Elder is a law-abiding citizen. He's never touched dice before. Wang Zhen immediately expressed his dissatisfaction. His movements were fluid and effortless, clearly indicating he was a frequent gambler. This, roll as big as he wants, can this divine power really cheat? Taijuan Saint's son was stunned, his face filled with shock and disbelief. His single sentence silenced everyone. This was a cursed divine power. A divine power? Could this really be cheated? Let's try it first. I'll bet big. Three-Eyed True Monarch said calmly, stepping forward. Then, realizing something, he quietly put his foot down. Wang Zhen's dream, the image of the great true monarch, shattered in an instant. It turned out this one also came to the gambling den? Come on! The old corpse nodded upon hearing this and recited the curse incantation to the Three-Eyed True Monarch. In an instant, there was a feeling of connection with the Three-Eyed True Monarch, as if their souls were linked by a thread invisible, intangible, illusory, and extremely wondrous. Ding ding clatter. The old corpse nodded smugly, his head spinning 360 degrees, his hands gripping the dice cup and shaking it wildly. The dice clanged and rattled chaotically. The Three-Eyed True Monarch narrowed his eyes, an inexplicable sense of danger rising within him, a feeling that if he left the gambling den, he would die a horrible death. This divine ability, could it really be a curse? He was filled with doubt and uncertainty, his divine consciousness probing, trying to see through it. But no matter how hard he tried to probe, he couldn't get his eyes into the dice cup. This is truly abnormal. I, a Daosling king, can't even see through a dice cup? The Three-Eyed True Monarch's face twitched. He felt it was strange. Big, big, big. Wang Zhen and Wang Li surrounded the gambling table, their eyes fixed on the shaking dice cup, excitedly shouting, "Small, small, small." Over 100 old ghosts, including the demon Shadow Immortal, were also staring at the dice cup, clenching their fists and roaring. Some even whistled. Seeing this, the beautiful face of the Taijuan Saint's son, Mo Qingru, was filled with disbelief. She felt this whole scene was utterly absurd. A group of ancient demons, countless years old, were gambling in this gathering place. They used the beautiful name of cultivating divine powers. Amitabha Buddha, Amitabha Buddha. The young white-robed monk huddled in a corner, his lips trembling, slowly closing his eyes and continuously chanting scriptures. As a Buddhist monk, he was now inexplicably mingling with demons. His master would surely punish him if he found out. He couldn't understand why Yishaya wasn't supposed to be converting these demons and ascending to the throne, but instead was gambling. A reincarnation of Shakyamuni Buddha, already possessing all 5 poisons. Small, small, small. It must be small. The withered old corpse muttered incessantly, then suddenly shouted, slamming the dice cup onto the silver mat. At this moment, everyone, including the demons, held their breath, not blinking an eye. It must be small. Open for me, open. The old corpse, with its large, dark eyes, suddenly reached up and lifted a dice cup, revealing the dice underneath. The 3 dice showed 3, 5, and 2. 8, small, ha ha ha, I win. Seeing this, the old corpse burst into maniacal laughter, unable to contain its excitement. It was impossible not to be excited. If the divine power was real, gambling with it was a gamble with one's life. Although his chances of winning were 70%, who could say for sure? He'd either die or be severely injured. Oldly, not bad, a show of skill. The demon Shadow Immortal praised loudly. The other old ghosts also nodded in agreement, then simultaneously approached the Three-Eyed True Monarch. From what they could see, the old corpse's cultivation showed no negative reactions. But whether this divine power was truly effective, no one knew. This guy must be cheating. That's right, how could an old devil have such good luck? Wang Zhen questioned the old corpse's character, and Feng Che and his disciples chimed in. You can insult my dignity, but you can't insult my character. No, you devil. The old corpse was instantly enraged. These days, righteous people are becoming increasingly shameless. This is divine power, a cheating gambler. The imposing old ghostie was also dissatisfied. He is a devil. Wang Li suddenly said, "The old ghosts. Hiss, I suddenly have the urge to strangle you." The Three-Eyed True Monarch, who had remained silent until now, lowered his head and stared at the dice for a long time. He raised his head, his face expressionless, and said, this attitude. It showed how annoyed he was. a dignified Dao-slaying king, yet he lost. Theft. The next moment, the three-eyed true monarch's face changed drastically, his skin instantly turning crimson, blood gushing out from his pores. His internal organs, bones, and flesh felt as if they were being tightly gripped by an invisible giant hand, constantly squeezing, wanting to crush him. At the same time, the divine palace in the three-eyed true monarch's forehead was also shaking, and the small figure of his divine soul within the divine palace seemed to be seized by a giant hand, wanting to crush his divine soul to death. Both my physical body and divine soul have been cursed. This is more than 10 times stronger than the hanging demon slaying technique. What level of curse is this? The three-eyed true monarch's expression was one of shock, staring intensely at Yi Xiao, who was sitting cross-legged like a true god in the human world, filled with shock and disbelief. This divine ability. But it's actually possible to kill. The demonic path's killing technique, something fundamentally unprecedented in history, this is truly a groundbreaking feat. Moreover, its power surpasses his imagination. He witnessed Yi Xiaoyao's creation of divine abilities, and without exaggeration, this kind of killing technique far surpasses any previous divine abilities. It can kill those at the Dao integration stage, even those at the Dao severing stage. Luckily, this old corpse isn't very strong, otherwise I wouldn't be able to withstand this killing spell. The three-eyed true monarch became increasingly astonished as he thought about it, sweat beading on his forehead. Any powerful divine ability is not only determined by the ability itself, but also by the person performing it. The higher the cultivation, the stronger the divine ability. And this old corpse is only a peak heavenly human realm ghost general, elegantly known as Flying Corpse. Meaning a flying corpse. He's a living person, yet he actually created a divine ability for the dead to cultivate. Hiss, even a true monarch is like this. This ghost Dao spell is truly terrifying. How the hell is this possible? He almost killed a true monarch with a single roll of the dice. The demon shadow immortal and other old ghosts looked at the three-eyed true monarch's pathetic state and couldn't help but gasp in shock. This divine ability is not only real, but its cultivation speed is also astonishingly fast. Even if they cultivated Earth-level ghost Dao divine ability, they wouldn't be able to succeed so quickly. Damn it, I finally understand why those people from the Dao Heavenly Master Holy Land asked the Taijuan ancestor for this lower divine ability. How much luck did the Taijuan Holy Land have to grant this monstrous talent, Yi Xiao? They all looked at Yi Xiao, their eyes immediately turning red, their bodies trembling with excitement. They originally thought that this trip would only turn them into cannon fodder for the Taijuan Holy Land. Now it seems, it's clearly their fate. Ghost Dao divine abilities are inherently hard to find, extremely rare. At their level, fighting is all about who has the thicker blood and who can withstand more blows. And this kind of incredibly fast, powerful, and terrifying cursed divine ability is almost non-existent. Even if you search through history books, you wouldn't find a single example. This time, it's definitely fate. I must perform well and enter the Taijuan group's discerning gaze. I'm determined to grab this opportunity. I say, even the great emperor can't stop me. The old ghost's hearts immediately burned with excitement, their gazes towards Yi Xiao as if they were looking at God. Their gazes towards the old corpse, however, were tinged with jealousy. They should have gone ahead and left a good impression on the Taijuan group. Now things have reversed. Perhaps this person already has a prejudice against them. Excellent, excellent. The old corpse laughed heartily, extremely pleased. Yi Xiaoyao's golden thigh. It was obvious he had successfully secured a good spot. Cultivate, cultivate quickly. Anyone who doesn't cultivate will have their whole family wiped out. The shadow demon venerable arrogantly ordered. Then, revealing a smiling face, he walked towards the old corpse, clasped his hands politely and said, "Old Li, I'll borrow your ribs to refine and create 3 dice. Old Li, you know, my corpse has long been ground to dust. I'll borrow your thigh bone for a while, and I'll find a thigh bone to return to you later. Old Li, I'll borrow your skull to play with. Old Li." A group of old ghosts rushed forward, all clamoring. The old corpse's laughter abruptly stopped, his face turning pale. To create a few dice, they were practically trying to destroy him. Beside him, the Taijuan Saint Sun, Little Diamond, Wang Zhen, and others watched with extreme envy. This divine ability was a ghost Dao divine ability. They, mere mortals, couldn't possibly cultivate such trivial things. However, inwardly, he admired the young master even more. He could even create divine abilities from the dead. This was even more extraordinary than creating those monstrous heaven-level divine abilities. Master, are you alright? Sumayo incautiously extended her small finger and poked the bloodstain on the three-eyed true monarch's back. I'm fine. I just wanted to see how powerful this was. I wasn't defending myself. The three-eyed true monarch shook his head. His cultivation circulated, and in a moment the curse weakened and disappeared. He was only half a step away from becoming a saint, and the old corpse was only at the peak of the heavenly human realm. The curse wouldn't cause him much harm. If this old corpse were to fight to the death, it could potentially kill an early-stage Dao integration cultivator. As for its ultimate power, we still need to test it. The three-eyed true monarch's mood brightened considerably, and he sneered, "This time, I'll definitely make the Yin-Yang sect suffer a great loss. This kind of killing technique is difficult to guard against. It's very hard to find its weakness." After saying that, he calmly looked at the old corpse. "Let's gamble again. Hey, I dare not refuse." The old corpse chuckled softly twice, his confidence soaring, and immediately pushed aside a group of old ghosts, quickly walking to the gambling table. A group of old ghosts were left sighing, only able to search their storage bags for body parts from when they were alive to make dice. Big, big, big. Small, 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 open it for me. A roar came from the back of the Golden Wing Great ROC, and the dice in the old corpse's hand were almost shattered. Originally, the three-eyed true monarch had a cold expression. It was just a taste of the ultimate power of the killing technique. But the more he lost, the more he suffered. His eyes began to redden. Over a dozen matches, not a single win. This was somewhat unusual. "I don't believe it." Three-eyed true monarch's face turned pale. He snatched the dice cup and started shaking it himself. Clang, clang, his hands moving frantically, creating blurs of motion. This Feng Queer sat beside Yi Xiao, her peach blossom eyes wide with surprise. She repeatedly looked at Yi Xiao, who was sitting with his eyes closed, unable to suppress her curiosity. She didn't understand how Yi Xiao had created such a sinister divine ability. The little monk was also inexplicably shaken, feeling a tingling sensation in his scalp. He became even more convinced that Yi Xiao was the reincarnation of Shakyamuni Buddha. This kind of groundbreaking, demonic curse could be called a miracle. It was simply impossible for an ordinary person to create. Even the ancient great emperors would find it difficult to create. But how could the reincarnation of Shakyamuni Buddha create such underworld divine powers? After thinking for a long time, the young monk's eyes lit up with understanding. It must be that Yi Xiao was corrupted by the human sect, his pure Buddha heart covered in a layer of dust and ashes, leading him astray. Amitabha Buddha, Yi Xiao, this humble monk believes you have gone astray. This humble monk will recite the Lotus Sutra for you to cleanse your soul. The young monk went to Yi Xiao's side, sat cross-legged, his body enveloped in Buddha light, and began reciting scriptures. By frequently reciting Buddhist teachings, he would surely bring Yi Xiao back to the mortal world and lead him into Buddhism. Yi Xiao didn't respond to him, continuing to contemplate the scriptures in his mind. A few days later, the old ghosts had all successfully cultivated the ghost dice, each holding a dice cup in their hands. One might mistake them for the heavenly King Li. And the gambling was over. After more than a day of fierce battles and over 100 baits, the three-eyed true monarch finally won a round. Nothing more than this. The three-eyed true monarch disdainfully glanced at the old corpse lying beside him, constantly twitching. He didn't notice the streaks of blood in his eyes. Is that the Taijuan Holy Land? I'm really looking forward to it. The old ghosts all looked towards the distant mountains. The Taijuan Holy Land, they were almost there. And the chanting stopped. The innocent white-robed little monk looked at the calm and peaceful Yi Xiao, revealing a joyful smile. He thought his chanting of Buddhist scriptures was effective. Yi Xiao was also happy because he had created another divine ability. Its name was Decapitation Demonic Technique. Ding, you've studied dozens of spirit-level divine abilities, and your understanding of the Decapitation Demonic Technique has become even deeper. If you've had that thought and believe that the body can become a divine weapon, then the human brain can too. You've forged your own path. Relying on your profound divine abilities, you've created the Decapitation Demonic Technique. Decapitation demonic technique. Spirit level beginner. The brain can become a divine weapon, comparable to a spiritual treasure. Using divine consciousness and true essence, you control the skull to fly out and attack enemies. Only those above the heavenly human realm can cultivate it. You just need to decapitate the skull, hold it in your hand, and frantically hammer it against hard objects, forging the skull 360 degrees without blind spots, hammering it 10 million times. Then plant it in the ground, pour in rare heavenly treasures and fertilize it, and you can successfully cultivate it. Yi Xiao took a deep breath. Amazing! He was secretly astonished. This system was becoming more and more down to earth and fertilizing. How is this any different from farming? People plant crops, you plant human heads. Yi Xiao suddenly remembered a certain brainwashing song, Little Apple. I planted a human head, and finally it bore fruit. Today is a grand celebration. I'll take off my eyes and give them to you. I'll pull out my tongue and give it to you, so the sun will shine on you every day. I'll burn myself to ashes, just to illuminate you. I'll give you everything I have, as long as you're happy. Ah! Yi Xiao shuddered. This song was something he couldn't recall again. His mother opened the door to him in an unconventional way. He arrived at his home in an unconventional way. Following the Golden Wing Great ROC's flapping wings, they were approaching the Taijuan Holy Land. And in front of the Taijuan Holy Land's mountain gate, the Taijuan Holy Lord, Elder Bai, and the red-faced elder were laughing heartily as they welcomed him. There were also a few disciples, all of whom Yi Xiao had seen years ago. This, I find it quite familiar. The old corpse exclaimed, his withered finger pointing towards the mountain gate. Behind the mountain gate, on several small mountains, were numerous tombs densely packed with trees, and yellowed paper money fluttering in the wind. Is this the first of the 9 great sacred lands, the Taijuan sacred land? Why does it look like a graveyard? I feel like I'm coming home. The demon Shadow Immortal and other old ghosts looked bewildered. This familiar scene gave them a strong sense of security. This three-eyed true monarch's face twitched, his eyes fixed on Yi Xiao. Undoubtedly, those tombs contained some disciples. Break! In the midst of the excitement, a woodpecker suddenly flew in from nowhere and directly struck the old corpse on the head, killing it instantly. Fresh blood splattered everywhere, its beak deeply embedded in the old corpse's skull. Holy cow, what's going on? The old corpse was stunned, and it took him a long time to pull the dead bird out. The others exchanged glances, suddenly shuddering. Could this be the ghost dice cultivation consuming luck? This is so abnormal. The demon Shadow Immortal's lips trembled. The old ghosts were also filled with horror, feeling something strange, and all looked towards Yi Xiao. The latter looked straight ahead, as if he hadn't seen anything. Where's young Master Yi? Where did he go? Seeing the group dismount from the Golden Wing Great ROC, Li Kun, one of the young men, looked on for a long time and asked curiously. The others also spent half a day looking around, but couldn't find that familiar little kid. Whether they could turn the tables this time depended entirely on the group, according to the Holy Lord's intentions. Naturally, they came forward to greet him. That one in white clothes, Holy Lord Qingfeng said calmly. Is this the group? Li Kun stared at the incredibly handsome young man in white, speechless. Was he high on chemicals? Greetings, group. The young men behind him were also stunned, but having experienced hardship, they quickly recovered and bowed in unison. Li Kun, haha, 3 years have passed. You've grown so much. Yi Xiao smiled and nodded, his eyes showing admiration. Li Kun was embarrassed, thinking to himself, your growth rate is faster than mine. Looking forward to the stars, looking forward to the moon, and finally you've returned. And you've even made me, Taijuan, win the championship. Good? Extremely good. Ha ha ha. The Taijuan Holy Lord stepped forward, affectionately patting Yi Xiao's shoulder, overjoyed. Regarding the competition, Zhao Zikeng had already reported it. When he first heard about it, he was shocked. He originally thought he could get one of the top 3 positions. He didn't expect to get first place. I've done my duty to strengthen Taijuan, Yi Xiao said with a faint smile. If your father knew, how happy he would be. The Taijuan Holy Lord nodded, his face full of emotion. Then he looked at the Taijuan Holy Son beside Yi Xiao, his face stiffening. As for you, I didn't know how to negotiate with your father and mother, to return one son and bring back another. Alas, The Taijuan Holy Master's face was filled with a bitter smile. Mo Kingaru was the only male heir of the Mo family. His parents had no hope of raising a grandson, but they could certainly raise a granddaughter. If they knew, they would probably fight him to the death. Greetings, holy son, holy daughter. Li Kun and the others were also amazed and impressed by Lian, lamenting that after 3 years, Taijuan had changed drastically. Tens of thousands of Taijuan disciples had transformed from ordinary men into mere weapons. Even more exaggerated, the men had become mere pawns. They were brothers at first, but now they were siblings. They couldn't help but glance at Yi Xiaoyao. Then they all trembled with fear. Since hearing about the events of the competition, their impression of this group had changed drastically. Men could even transform into women. It was both shocking and intriguing. Get lost! MC Kinni scolded, her eyes rolling back. Instantly, she exuded an indescribable charm, causing Li Kun and the other young men to tremble with excitement, hastily closing their eyes and silently calling out, "Infinite Heavenly Venerable! Is this the ancient Empress, Feng Queer?" Elder by his expression was like that of a son returning home with a new daughter-in-law. The others also had strange expressions. They had heard rumors that the ancient Empress was not very good-natured, and they never expected the young master to have subdued her. Her docility was unbelievable. Then they looked at the others, their eyes narrowing at the young monk, revealing a sharp glint. They ignored the black donkey. What was so special about a donkey? When they saw the old corpse and his group, they were all stunned. "Who are these devils?" the Taijuan Holy Lord exclaimed, scrutinizing the dice in their hands. "They're strong men captured from the graveyard outside the Heavenly Master Holy Land to deal with the Yin-Yang sect," the three-eyed true monarch explained. Good. With this group of cannon fodder, we have a glimmer of hope of turning defeat into victory, Li Kun said excitedly. The old corpse and the demon shadow immortal exchanged glances. "You look quite familiar." The Taijuan Holy Lord's eyes gleamed with a sinister light as he stared at one of the old ghosts. "My surname is Yu," Old Ghost Yu said, clasping his hands. He was older than the Taijuan Holy Lord. When he attained sainthood, the other party hadn't even been born yet. "Ah, so it's you. I've seen your portrait before. The 1,000-year-old saint of the Yin-Yang sect. The current Yin-Yang sect master is your disciple, isn't he? What? Are you here to confess?" The Taijuan Saint Lord sneered. Old Ghost Yu had a formidable reputation during his lifetime. Before becoming a saint, he killed many Taijuan disciples. "Saint Lord, you've misunderstood. Strictly speaking, I have no connection with the Yin-Yang sect. I died long ago. What remains of me is merely a ghostly remnant soul. Furthermore, under the wise leadership of the Heavenly Master Holy Land, I have long since reformed." Old Ghost Yu interjected. "HMPH, you don't even forget to bring the dice when you go out. Is this what you call reforming?" The Taijuan Holy Lord snorted coldly, not pursuing the matter further. Old Ghost Yu looked at Yi Xiaoyao, his face full of innocence. This needed to be asked of this person. Soon, a group entered the Taijuan Holy Land. As news of Yi Xiaoyao's return spread, the Holy Land instantly erupted in excitement, with people rushing towards the small building to greet Yi Xiaoyao. In terms of prestige, apart from Yi Xiaoyao's father, Yi Nansen, and the saint ancestor, no one else in the Taijuan Holy Land could rise to such a level. The next morning, in the main hall, the Taijuan Holy Lord summoned Yi Xiaoyao to discuss dealing with the Yin-Yang sect disciples and also to find the previous holy son, Ti Tong, who had disappeared without a trace. Nearly 500 young men stood below, along with the Taijuan Holy Sun and Little Diamond, several elites. These were the forces to counterattack the Yin-Yang sect. Of course, not all of them. Many disciples were out training in the world. "Let's negotiate. The Yin-Yang sect is going crazy now. They must retaliate." "Junior brother Ziyao, what do you think?" the Taijuan Holy Lord said slowly. After he finished speaking, everyone looked at him, their eyes filled with anticipation. Their cultivation and physique were extraordinary, but their offensive and defensive techniques were considerably weaker than those of the demonic sect. Leaving aside other things, just considering escape techniques, the demonic sect had all sorts of blood escape techniques, running so fast they were practically unstoppable. Tomorrow I will impart the techniques. I believe with these techniques, we should be able to deal with them. The hunter and the prey should switch places. Yi Ziya was very calm, his eyes profound. He had no intention of personally taking action. His identity was special. The yin-yang sect's demonic cultivators would probably turn into rabid dogs upon seeing him. He himself wasn't afraid, but involving these disciples would be problematic. Heaven-level divine abilities still have some use, but earth-level ones, I'm afraid, won't be very effective. The red-faced elder pondered, reminding them. Previously, Ishaya had created hundreds of divine abilities, but they were no longer effective against the heaven-human and Tao harmony realms. And heaven-level divine abilities were simply too scarce. Absolutely correct. We shouldn't rely on spirit-level abilities. As long as we have enough heaven-level divine abilities, we can catch the yin-yang sect off guard and even turn defeat into victory. The Taijuan Saint Lord gently stroked his chin. They didn't even dare to think about spirit-level abilities. This level was somewhere between mortal and saint. It wasn't something that could be created by someone with extraordinary talent, but required a profound understanding of the great Tao of heaven and earth. This is like seeing a pig running around, but never having tasted pork. If you've never even eaten pork, how can you describe its taste? Meanwhile, a group of Taijuan youths in the hall gasped in astonishment. Their faces showed disbelief and shock. 3 years ago, if a saint had created an earth-level technique, the entire Holy Land would have celebrated. Not to mention a heaven-level technique. But now, they felt the Holy Master's tone was dismissive. The young master creating a heaven-level divine ability was as easy as growing cabbage. However, they were even more curious about what the young master had created this time. They had seen techniques like mourning and burying people alive before. But having only returned a few days ago and not yet cultivated them, the impact was truly immense. I have over 20 heaven-level divine abilities in my possession. I will teach them tomorrow. Today I have other matters to attend to. Facing everyone's gaze, Ishaya said thoughtfully, 20-odd techniques. Hearing this, the crowd exchanged shocked glances, their eyes as if they were looking at a monster. So many heaven-level techniques. I underestimated my junior brother's creativity. You're constantly reminding me that I'm a useless person. The Holy Lord remained silent for a long time, then said dryly. He was very ashamed. Damn, too monstrous. I've never seen such a terrifying guy before. 20-odd techniques, even having a child takes a year to live. This guy is mass-producing them, a human flesh manufacturing machine. Li Kun and the others were deeply shaken upon hearing this. Only after hearing it firsthand did they understand what a freak was. Then they were all excited, their eyes reddening. Here were all young geniuses who had honed their skills for many years, each cultivating their own divine abilities. But those divine abilities require immense effort to cultivate. Even a year or half a year might not be enough to achieve mastery, and the divine abilities can't keep up with cultivation. The founding ancestor, although not at the spirit level, is somewhat lacking. But as the Holy Master said, as long as there are enough heaven-level cultivators, they will definitely catch the yin-yang sect off guard. On the border of Linzhou, 5 markets have been occupied, and the nearest source of raw ore has also been seized and is being rapidly excavated. Yin-yang sect disciples are occupying those places. Attack those first, then eliminate all other disciples within Linzhou. The Holy Master nodded happily, then looked at Li Kun and the others. Yes. A young man beside Li Kun clasped his hands. His name was Wu Yan, a former prodigy, his cultivation already at the Tao integration realm, the strongest among the disciples in this group. He hesitated for a moment, muttering to himself, we, as disciples of the Taijuan sect, are not afraid of death, but that Kaji from the yin-yang sect has come out. That woman's seductive techniques are too powerful. It's not something that can be defended against with just strength. Upon hearing this name, Li Kun couldn't help but tremble. He also hurriedly said, that's right, even the heavenly demon sex leader has fallen prey to her. With hundreds of us going up, we simply can't handle it. The heavenly demon sex leader's wife was a Tyrannosaurus Rex in her youth, possessing formidable combat power. Who knows how many times the heavenly demon sect leader suffered domestic violence? Not to mention now that she's entering menopause. Menopausal women are the most terrifying. The heavenly demon sect leader risked being beaten to death to steal her. This shows just how much destructive power Kaji possesses. These guys, who haven't even touched a woman, are being consumed by lust. Who can handle that? The heavenly demon sect leader. I heard he's been taking 3 beatings a day lately, 1 in the morning, 1 at noon, and 1 at night perfectly on schedule. Yi Xiao narrowed his eyes. That's absolutely correct. It's clear that the courtesan is indeed difficult to deal with. What do you all think? Do you have a better plan? The Holy Master's face twitched as he slowly spoke, his gaze returning to Yi Xiao. What if the disciples are blind when facing that woman? Why don't you suggest having that woman cover her face? All the elders were clamoring and arguing incessantly. I have 2 strategies. Yi Xiao glanced at the Holy Master and these shameless elders. He remained silent. Those people knew the countermeasures, but out of fear of losing face, none of them dared to speak. Please enlighten us, young master. Please enlighten us, young master. Li Kun, Wei Yan, and others were invigorated, clasping their hands together, their eyes filled with anticipation. The first strategy, if you can't win, then join. Yi Xiao said calmly. What kind of if you can't win, then join method? The crowd was stunned. Couldn't we just turn into women? Yi Xiao said with a half smile. The crowd was struck as if by lightning, only then remembering the Taijuan Saint Sun, and then all looked over. The Taijuan Saint Sun's face was full of gloom, feeling that he had been offended. There is also a second option, cultivating the sunflower manual and seizing eternal power. Even if that woman is incredibly powerful, she can't possibly use her seductive charm on a group of eunuchs, can she? Yi Xiao tapped his fingers on the railing. Damn, that's very well said. It makes sense. Li Kun was shocked. He had heard of this cultivation method. It was very sinister. He just didn't want to recall it. Every time he remembered it, a chill ran down his spine. Little group, is it true that the recovery has started to make you bigger? Wu Yan cleared his throat. Yes. Well, for the prosperity and flourishing of our Taijuan, cut. Just 2 or 3 inches. What's the big deal? The young men immediately became extremely excited, their spirits soaring. You all continue your discussion. I have other matters to attend to. Tomorrow, come to the lecture platform, and I will impart my divine abilities to you. Yi Xiao nodded and slowly stood up. A moment later, he went to the refining building. Yi Xiao found the grandmother of chair refining, a saint-level figure, who, apart from being interested in chair refining, had absolutely no other interest. What? You've created a blueprint for refining a spiritual treasure. But you actually made it. The refining tower was a stone building. It emitted earth flare, resulting in extremely high temperatures. Yi Xiao stood inside, feeling the surging heat as if he were in a scorching summer day, and longing for some ice-cold melons to quench his thirst. Before him, a 7 or 8-year-old boy, naked, stood on a chair, swinging a large, small hammer, furiously pounding a glowing red ingot on a stone mound. This was the fire child of the Taijuan saint. Due to cultivating a certain martial art, he suffered severe developmental delays, leaving him with the appearance of a child. And this method of refining che, according to him, often used the simplest methods for high-end materials. Kid, you've never refined che before. This trip requires experience, not comprehension. You know what it means to create a blueprint for a spiritual treasure. Don't try to fool me. Even if you were Yulaogui's grandson, I'd still beat you. Huo Tongzi turned around and continued to hammer at old Tai, his 8-year-old belly displaying 8-pack ABS. He had practiced che cultivation for 2,000 years, long since becoming a master of this art, even having crafted countless sacred artifacts. He understood better than anyone how difficult the crafting of che cultivation was. It was hundreds of times more difficult than alchemy or divine abilities, because this art involved a vast range of things, requiring mastery of restrictions, formations, and a thorough understanding of the 3,000 great paths. Just like crafting a storage bag, one needed to understand the way of space, miniature formations, and miniature restrictions. Mastering them was difficult, let alone creating them. Huo Tongzi wiped his sweat and held the finished weapon in his hand. I spent 3 days and 3 nights, and finally succeeded in forging it. Come, take a look. Huo Tongzi was extremely pleased and proudly said to Yi Xiao, "This is a brick?" Yi Xiao looked at the exquisite brick, and the drawing of a little child urinating on it, and couldn't refute it. Isn't it that despicable old man me, who lost a fight with some saint from the Yin-Yang sect? He came back a few days ago, crying and begging me to make a brick to smash him to death. To prove he's a pure family member, Hua Tongzi said resentfully. Old Manmi wasn't from the Yi family, he was another saint from the Taijuan Holy Land, with an illustrious reputation. Of course, his reputation wasn't good at all, given his effeminate manner. With so many Taijuan disciples dead, it's impossible for the high-ranking saints not to react. They couldn't possibly descend from the ranks of the younger generation, but a duel between equals is still acceptable. Alright, I want to create a long-range projectile. Yi Xiao quickly changed the subject. Kid, stop being so reckless, believe it or not. I'll smash you with a brick. Hua Tongzi glared. It's true, just take a look. Yi Xiao sighed, feeling this little brat had been practicing for too long and didn't know how much Taijuan Holy Land had changed. Let me see, is it a crossbow or a bow and arrow? Seeing Yi Xiao's serious expression, Hua Tongzi frowned and accepted the crafting blueprint. He stared at the bizarre Gatling-shaped blueprint for a long time, his face showing disbelief. Then his face turned purple with anger. You little brat, you're really deceiving me. I'll smash you to death. He had been practicing cultivation for 2,000 years. What kind of weapon hadn't he seen? This worthless Gatling gun. He'd never heard of it. Could this toy really fire from a distance? And even spiritual treasures weren't as useful as the brick in his hand. This thing is the key to counterattacking the Yin-Yang sect disciples. Its power is far greater than bows and arrows, Yi Xiao said helplessly. Really? Hua Tongzi was startled, his disbelief unwavering. He knew this kid wouldn't joke about this. I'll study it. Seeing Yi Xiao nod, Hua Tongzi frowned and carefully studied the weapon crafting diagram again. After thinking for a long time, his expression gradually became serious, even more suspicious. He suddenly discovered that the structure of this weapon was extremely intricate, with an astonishing number of restrictions. This thing can really fire from a distance. Its power is far greater than bows and arrows. Hua Tongzi clenched his fists, his temples throbbing. I've never seen anything like it before. Absolutely certain. Then I'll trust you this one time. With my refining skills, crafting a spiritual treasure is more than enough. Hua Tongzi was half believing, half doubting. This toy had shattered his traditional concept of weapons. The precious, refining material was refined iron, much harder and more ductile than steel. 6 barrels, a holster, garrow grooves, the gun shaft, and the rear support frame, using true essence to replace the electric motor as the propulsion for firing, with a range of 30,000 meters. A large caliber Gatling machine gun. He also used compressed true essence to replace the explosive, and used red fire gold, capable of penetrating defenses, as the shell casing, crafting extremely large bullets, about 2 fingers in size. The rate of fire is 100 rounds per second, 6,000 rounds per minute. He could be called the king of slaughter in the war. This toy is 100 times more complex than ordinary spiritual treasures, Fireboy said, feeling a little numb after refining a pile of components. Ordinary swords and knives are very simple. The complexity lies only in the fusion of materials and the engraving of forbidden spells and miniature formations. Waiting until nightfall, a pitch-black Gatling heavy machine gun, along with 100,000 rounds, was finally successfully refined. It flickered with black light, heavy and full of oppressive feeling. I suddenly like this little toy. It's definitely a great toy, Fireboy said, stroking the cold machine gun. Yi Xiao smiled. No one could dislike this kind of machine gun, full of modern scientific and technological aesthetics. But at the moment Fireboy successfully refined it, his expression changed, and he felt intense pain all over his body, his skin slightly indented. It was like 1,000 arrows were simultaneously fired at him. The pain was excruciating. It was unbearable. Is this the price of refining this spiritual treasure? Hua Tongzi's face turned pale as he tried to stop it, but strangely, he couldn't. It was like some kind of Tao rule, or curse. There was no way to avoid it. He could only endure it. A full minute passed before the intense pain subsided. It's really too much. Hua Tongzi grimaced, his skin twitching, experiencing Yi Xiao's wickedness for the first time. Come, try its power. Hua Tongzi threw the Gatling gun to Yi Xiao, his hands clasped behind his back, speaking menacingly. Then you should be careful too. Yi Xiao smiled, his true essence surging as he loaded the gun. Careful, no matter what, I'm still a saint, even without defense. What can this little toy do to me? Besides, it might not even surpass the power of a bow and arrow. Hugh Tongzi snorted coldly, unconcerned. He was only determining whether this toy was usable. Power? Who knows? Good. Yi Xiaoyao laughed heartily, wielding the machine gun, his true essence propelling it. The barrel began to rotate. Clang, clang, clang. In an instant, blue flames erupted. A continuous roar followed, bullets shattering the sound barrier like a storm. Then came an overwhelming barrage, completely engulfing Hugh Tongzi. Clang, clang, clang. Bullets struck Hugh Tongzi's body, emitting a deafening metallic clang, rapidly exploding, and sparks flew everywhere. Painful. This is no ordinary pain. Firechild's expression changed instantly. He had forged a saint-level body. His defensive power was unimaginably strong. The spirit treasure bullets couldn't penetrate his defenses. But the fact that it could make him feel such intense pain was enough to prove the power of this machine gun. Compared to the great price he had paid before, it was terrifying. It's several times more powerful than a spirit treasure level bow and arrow, damn. How is this possible? And this firing speed, it's a bit too fast. Firechild's small face trembled with pain, completely shocked and filled with disbelief. Drawing a bow and arrow, he could still counterattack using the time it took to draw the bow. But this dense barrage of bullets, wave after wave, made even defense difficult, let alone counterattacking. No matter how powerful the defensive spirit treasure was, under such relentless attacks, it simply couldn't withstand it. In an instant, its defense would be torn apart, riddled with holes. It can be called a divine artifact among spiritual treasures, a great weapon of mass destruction. Having practiced weapon crafting for thousands of years, even seeing artifacts crafted by quasi-emperors hadn't shocked him this much. Its long range, terrifyingly high density, and immense destructive power make it a veritable meat grinder on the battlefield. Moreover, holding this spiritual treasure provides an incredibly high level of safety. With such a dense barrage of projectiles, without paying a heavy price, it's impossible to get close. It's safe to say that this kind of weapon, once unleashed, would become a nightmare for those in the heavenly human realm. Even those in the Tao integration realm, caught off guard, would perish. Just based on what you saw in the scripture repository in those alchemy texts. He looked at Yi Xiaoyao, his eyes widening. For the first time, he realized how terrifying this young man was. Even heaven-defying comprehension wasn't enough to describe him. A peerless prodigy. He hadn't practiced alchemy, he had no experience in alchemy, yet he could create such a terrifying alchemy diagram. That's right, how powerful is it? Can you reverse the declining trend of the Taizhuan disciples and turn the tide of the war? Yi Xiaoyao chuckled faintly, retracting his Gatling machine gun. He was extremely satisfied with this item. If it's in large quantities, it's possible. If those disciples knew, they'd probably offer you up and place you on an altar. This is their fate. From now on, the safety of the Taizhuan Holy Land disciples will have one more layer of protection. Hugh Tongzi said with emotion, looking at Yi Xiaoyao as if he were looking at a piece of unparalleled raw jade. Such a prodigy, not following him to forge iron. What a pity. Suddenly, he felt something was wrong. His heart skipped a beat, and he pointed at Yi Xiaoyao and exclaimed in shock, "You're not going to ask me to forge hundreds or thousands of these for you, are you? Forging one of these things is painful for a minute. Forging hundreds or thousands, that would kill him. He's a saint, his defense is strong, and yet, that doesn't mean it won't hurt. Because of Taizhuan, there's no way." Yi Xiaoyao shrugged. You little brat, you're so wicked. I understand now, with so many alchemists, why did you come to me? My cultivation is high, I can withstand it, right? You're deliberately trying to trick me. Hugh Tongzi's face turned pale. For now, let's refine 100 of them. Although the materials are a bit precious, but our sacred site is not lacking in anything either. Yi Xiaoyao chuckled, his anger at Hugh Tongzi making him want to pull out a brick and beat this brat up. He was utterly worthless. Farewell, I'll come back in a few days. Yi Xiaoyao took a few steps back, quickly slipping away. Returning to the small building, he tittied up the divine abilities he would impart tomorrow, then embraced Feng Queer as fair, soft body and peacefully fell asleep. The moon was bright, the stars sparse, and it was utterly silent. Feng Queer lay beside Yi Xiaoyao, her beautiful face flushed with anger, Her lips pursed as she thought to herself. Although Yishao held her while she slept, who could get used to such a thing? Meanwhile, outside the small building, the pale-faced white elder, the nanny, stared at the black donkey dressed in a crimson robe and incredibly stylish. Old man, from now on, the task of protecting the immortals will be handled by this donkey family. You, old and senile, standing here will only spoil the mood of the high immortal. Black donkey straightened up, its hooves crossed over its chest, glancing at the man. Don't force me to butcher you, eat donkey meat. Elder Bai's face darkened. He really didn't know how Xiao had brought back such a donkey. Not just a donkey. In the courtyard, a young monk sat cross-legged under a tree, incessantly chanting scriptures, buzzing like a fly. His mood was terrible. His fists clenched, trembling. Oof, you want to fight me? You think you're so good at fighting. What good is fighting? When you're out and about, you need to talk about power. You need to talk about background. My backing is the high immortal. Black Donkey looked at Elder Bai's clenched fists, its mouth wide open, cackling happily. Bang! Elder Bai, enraged, slammed his hand down, sending the fan crashing to the ground with a loud bang. Hey, you old man, you didn't mention martial virtue, and yet you resorted to sneak attacks. I'm broken, pay up. I can't get up without paying dozens of immortal essences. The next morning, as the first rays of sunlight fell upon the earth, illuminating the Taijuan mountain range, the entire Taijuan Holy Land began to stir. The Taijuan ancestors' transmission of the Dharma is quite a commotion. I'm just a ghost. Why do I feel so terrified? The old corpse and the demon shadow immortal flew out from several courtyards, looking at the mountains and hills, where the tombs began to tremble. Several spirited youngsters broke through the earth of the tombs, crawling out with smiling faces. Some disciples, hanging from crooked trees, had their nooses removed. It looked so eerie. The living sleep in the graves of the dead. We are the dead in the living room. The old demons glanced at the Taijuan disciples, heading in a certain direction, and couldn't help but exchange glances. They always felt something was strange. In an instant, the area below the lecture platform was packed with people. Taijuan disciples numbered a staggering 80,000, all elites, ranging from true core to Dao integration. A group of high-ranking elders also rushed over, listening to Yi Zhayao's teachings. 20-odd heaven-level divine techniques. This battle was far larger than a saint's lecture, completely on a different scale. Below the platform, discussions were boisterous, and a group of young men and teenagers looked expectantly towards the small building where the small group was staying. We greatly underestimated the influence of the small group. This battle is too exaggerated. A young man who had caught up looked at the dense crowd with wide eyes. His name was Chu Bing, the previous first-ranked leader, whose combat power was extraordinarily formidable, and he had no shortage of young disciples who worshipped him. But compared to Yi Xiao, he seemed like a small fly compared to a big fry. This is too unreasonable. It's a shame we can fly, otherwise we wouldn't even be able to squeeze in. Li Kun also wiped his sweat. Let's go in quickly. Wu Yan said hurriedly, soaring upwards and floating towards the lecture platform. Hundreds of young people also hovered, following suit. I wonder what kind of divine techniques the young master will teach. I'm really looking forward to it. I also really want to know. I hope it's something normal. It should be normal, right? I don't believe that out of 20-odd subjects, not a single one is normal. The young people discussed among themselves, extremely curious. They hadn't cultivated the ancestral divine techniques at all. They returned a few days early. Their injuries from being chased and attacked hadn't even healed properly. So how could they possibly cultivate those techniques? I heard that once you start cultivating the ancestral divine techniques, the progress is incredibly fast. If I could cultivate all 20-odd techniques, it would be enough to defeat those demonic brats of the Yin-Yang sect. Li Kun's eyes gleamed with longing, rubbing his hands together and chuckling. He had been chased all the way, and he had been feeling resentful for a long time. 20-odd techniques. Do you really think the ancestral divine techniques are that easy to cultivate? Little Diamond said disdainfully from the side. The ancestral divine techniques are primarily about pain. Ordinary people can't endure it. Their group, however, was slowly progressing. Feng She heard this and puffed out his chest. Only someone with great willpower like me, only then could one cultivate so much and achieve immortality. The divine power sect's leader, no one had cultivated as much as him. His body had gradually become abnormal. HMPH. It's just a painful throw. What's the big deal? If you little brats can succeed, then our cultivation will be as easy as pie. Wu Yan said disdainfully. Li Kun, Zhou Bing, and other young leaders also had indifferent, nonchalant expressions. What storms and tribulations hadn't they seen? If a bunch of kids could succeed, wouldn't their cultivation be easy? The sect leader has arrived. Greetings, sect leader. The audience below instantly fell silent, then their eyes widened in respect, and they all bowed in greeting. Even without this seniority, they would willingly address him as sect leader, because this was the founder of the demonic cultivation technique. Yi Xiaoyao stepped forward, gently stroking his chin. Dressed in white, he was incredibly handsome, like an immortal descending to earth. This couldn't help but cause the numerous elders in the void to sigh in admiration. This image was a stark contrast to the things he had created. Below the preaching platform, a moment of silence. Burning gazes filled with anticipation and longing. Today I will impart the first Dharma, the spirit infant self-destruction technique. Yi Xiaoyao sat cross-legged on the preaching platform, looking down, and slowly spoke. His voice wasn't loud, but to the 80,000 disciples, it was like thunder. Especially those elites of the Taijuan Pavilion who had recently returned. They stared in stunned silence. Self-destruction. I don't want to die yet. What kind of cultivation method is this? Self-destruction requires cultivation. Isn't having a spirit infant enough? What's wrong with the young master? After the silence, a commotion erupted. Each disciple looked at Yi Xiaoyao, completely bewildered. Where did the promised Dharma transmission go? The young master must be crazy, right? The disciples of the Yin-Yang sect are strong, but not to the point of self-destructing together with them, to perish together, Li Kun muttered, feeling an urge to flee. The spirit infant is the foundation of cultivation. Its self-destruction is incredibly powerful, but at the same time, they wouldn't survive either. Not to mention, he was in the heavenly human realm. His spirit infant had transformed into a primordial spirit connected to his physical body, making its power even more astonishing. Ziyao, this self-destruction method must have some profound secret. The red-faced elder frowned. The self-destruction isn't of one's own spirit infant, but of a second, third, fourth spirit infant cultivated within the body. The maximum limit is 100. Yi Ziyao said unhurriedly. What, 100 spirit infants? Holy cow, what kind of bizarre operation is this? Wu Yan exclaimed, and the crowd trembled all over, their ears ringing. They could hardly believe it. From ancient times to the present, no one has ever cultivated a second spirit infant, unless they cultivated a second clone, using the clone to cultivate a second spirit infant. But that would also be a clone cultivated from a single body. One body can only have one. This is the evolution of the foundation of cultivation. This second spirit infant, in the ancient era, was attempted by a great emperor, but unfortunately failed. Can you really do it? Elder Yue smacked his lips, feeling increasingly unbelievable. If successful, it would be a groundbreaking achievement for the entire cultivation world, absolutely capable of shaking the entire cultivation world. This spirit infant is merely an evolution of divine abilities, unrelated to the foundation, and can only be used through self-destruction. It needs to devour the world's rare treasures and earthly resources to serve as the root of the spirit infant. Planting trees is no different from planting trees, Yi Xiaoyao said calmly. To be precise, it's a type of grenade. But even so, it's still incredibly powerful. A groundbreaking innovation in cultivation. Elder Yue wasn't disappointed, on the contrary. His eyes lit up. So that's it, the self-destruction of the spirit infant. Its power is terrifying. What kind of heaven-level divine abilities are these? I'm willing to call it the strongest heaven level. The numerous disciples below the stage heard clearly and became excited. Especially the disciples who had already cultivated to the spirit realm, like Little Diamond, Wang Zhen, and others. Their faces flushed, their whole bodies trembling with excitement. They had just entered the spirit realm. If they successfully cultivated it, it would definitely be their trump card, their ultimate weapon. The young master is truly worthy of being called the young master. He can even create something like this. I must cultivate it. Li Kun, Wuyan Jiubing, and other young men in the heavenly human and Tao integration realms had red eyes and dry mouths. Their eyes were filled with shock and intense longing. If we cultivate 100 spirit infants, those little demons of the yin-yang sect can certainly be suppressed and killed. This is our chance to turn the tables. Li Kun clenched his fists, his eyes filled with unwavering determination. This divine ability, he must cultivate it successfully even if it costs him his legs. Little ancestor, I am willing to be the first to cultivate it. Please instruct me. Li Kun stood up, clasped his hands, and said he was already willing to submit. Without hearing firsthand about the divine ability created by the little ancestor, he didn't understand how much of an impact this would have. Now he finally understood. No wonder this little ancestor has such high prestige. Excellent. Yi Xiao clapped his hands and laughed. He was a tough guy. He wondered how the spirit infant was successfully cultivated. The spirit infant looked up. Ah, it's a man. There's no way out. Thank you, little ancestor. Li Kun impatiently walked to the lecturing platform, his eyes filled with longing as he looked at Yi Xiao. His gaze was resolute, his voice full of pride. Little ancestor, I can endure all the suffering. He had heard that the little ancestor's divine abilities were quite painful during cultivation, but it wasn't a big deal. With his strong will, what was mere suffering compared to that? Good, worthy of being my Taijuan disciple. Yi Xiao smiled gently, handing a scroll to Li Kun. Li Kun wiped his hands on his clothes and solemnly accepted it. He eagerly examined it, his expression gradually becoming excited. Then it stiffened. Then, in an unimaginable way, my scalp went numb, and all my black hair started to fall out. Little group, is this real? Li Kun's face turned pale, and he trembled as he asked. He felt like he was dreaming. It was too explosive. More explosive than seeing someone buried alive or a hand ghost. He hadn't even cultivated the Taijuan Saint Sun's techniques, and he hadn't transformed into a woman yet. This one step was the right one, and he directly gave birth to a child. How can a man give birth? Naturally. This. Li Kun swallowed hard, his expression contorted, his heart pounding with rage. After all, he was the top disciple of the Taijuan sect last time, with countless admirers, and now he wanted to have a child. Wasn't he ashamed? Senior brother, what's wrong? What's the situation? Everyone below the stage was bewildered, not knowing what was wrong with senior brother Li. Their hearts raced, their curiosity about cultivation methods reaching its peak. This guy is just shallow-minded. The divine abilities group is a bit perverted. I'm not surprised at all. Little Diamond scoffed, thinking Li Kun was surprised. Beside him, Wang Zhen and Wang Li also nodded. They were all characters who had suffered enough from the divine abilities group's torment and had long since become accustomed to it. The group has tormented me 1,000 times, and I treat them like my first love. Is this what you call a bit perverted? And you're not surprised? Who has ever seen this toy before? Li Kun's face turned pale, and he gritted his teeth, saying, refine it. For the sake of destroying the yin-yang sect's demonic cultivators, everything is worth it. Your performance has made me extremely satisfied. Yi Xiao praised him greatly and immediately ordered the old man surnamed Yue to bring out the rare treasures. Here, heavenly wood flower, flowing cloud grass. The old man surnamed Yue immediately pulled out a pile of items. In the past, he might have felt heartbroken. Now he was even more eager to know how the second spirit infant was cultivated. All the elders were also extremely curious, staring intently, afraid of missing anything. Refine it. Li Kun looked at the pile of spiritual herbs stacked like a small mountain, gritted his teeth, and activated the spirit infant self-destruction demon slaying technique mental method. He opened his mouth, forming a swirling vortex. The medicinal power of the spiritual herbs, like a whirlwind, rushed into his mouth, devouring them frantically. This was the second stage of the spiritual infant divine technique. He didn't need to worry about the short-term effects of the mixed medicinal power affecting his foundation. He used self-destruction. He didn't pay much attention to that. As he refined, a point of spiritual light gathered at the edge of his dantian, gradually growing larger. Time passed. Under every scrutinizing gaze, Li Kun's chest began to swell, developing in a different direction, much like a surge of sex hormones. Brother Li, your chest is so big. Why are you acting so impulsively? Wu Yan exclaimed in surprise. Then, as he consumed more and more spiritual medicine, Li Kun's belly gradually became fuller, then larger, and even larger. The mouths of the 80,000 disciples slowly opened wide. They seemed to see a kind of maternal radiance on Li Kun's body. Holy cow, he's pregnant. Above the preaching platform, Li Kun looked like a woman who was 5 or 6 months pregnant. No, he was actually pregnant. I actually saw my mother's shadow on him. Wu Yan's eyes almost popped out, his face full of a terrified expression as if he'd seen a ghost. This eerie feeling was so intense it made his scalp tingle. Damn, my brother turned into my mother. Zhou Bing also gasped, slapping himself to clear his head. Holy cow, what a terrible day. I really have the urge to call her mother. Regarding my senior brother turning into my mother. Below the preaching platform, a commotion arose, each gaze filled with shock and fear as they looked at Li Kun's protruding belly. Is this what you said you weren't surprised about? Wu Yan couldn't help but look at Little Diamond. Seeing the latter's mouth wide open, a look of utter disbelief crossed his face. The beautiful face of the Taijuan Saint's son was flushed crimson with makeup. I retract my previous statement. This divine ability is truly insane. Little Diamond licked his dry lips. This divine ability completely exceeded his expectations, even more bizarre than transforming into a woman. After 10 days of pregnancy and giving birth to a spirit infant, you can successfully cultivate. Yi Xiao cleared his throat and slowly spoke. 10 days of pregnancy. I can't even bear 1 day, and giving birth. I'm not a pregnant woman. Zhou Bing's jaw almost dropped to the ground. The 80,000 disciples turned pale, calling him a pervert. They felt that the young master was constantly challenging their psychological limits. 10 days of pregnancy. Not to mention with a male counterpart. For the girls, it's also hard to bear after all. They don't have partners yet, let alone husbands. What's going on with this pregnancy? When they find a partner, people will judge. Oh my God, you're making me a big victim, making me a scapegoat. Farewell. Ziyao, does cultivating another spirit infant mean you want to get pregnant again? The old man surnamed Yue and the other elders all spoke up, looking at Li Kun's big belly, feeling their scalps tingle. This is just too outrageous. That's right, if you want to be rich, have many children, and plant many trees. This aligns with the current mainstream values. Yiziya smiled, his gaze sweeping over the young people below the platform, including Zhou Bing, Wu Yan, and others, his eyes filled with encouragement. The mother goddess gave birth to many kinds of plants. The old man's face flushed red as he muttered to himself, this divine ability is powerful, but it's truly inhuman. It's a shame we've already reached the peak of the Tao integration realm and can't use this thing. The old man surnamed Yue took out a handkerchief to wipe away his sweat. Yi Xiaoya's inability to create a spirit-level divine ability ultimately brought disaster upon them, the elders. For a moment, he didn't know whether to feel regret or relief. For the sake of becoming stronger, I'll endure. It's only 10 days, right? At most, I won't leave the house. Li Kun opened his eyes wide, looking at his bulging belly, tears streaming down his face. He wiped away his tears while trying to encourage himself. He looked as if he had just been raped. Little ancestor, this chest of mine, does it mean I still need to breastfeed the spirit infant? Li Kun suddenly noticed his bulging chest, his face stiffening. He wore a disgusted expression. He gently squeezed it. 10 parts elastic. What kind of toy is this? And you want to breastfeed Ling Ying? Damn it, is this some kind of perverted thing to do? Impossible. This is too unreasonable. Below the platform, countless disciples were terrified, their hair standing on end. It's not that bad. This is Ling Ying, not a real child. Yi Xiao remained silent, waving his sleeve. Ling Ying is a different kind of transformation through cultivation, not a human. That's good then, otherwise my reputation would be completely ruined. Li Kun wiped away his tears, sobbing. He really didn't want to cultivate this thing. But without cultivation, how could he suppress those demonic brats of the yin-yang sect? I'll cultivate, alas, for the sake of becoming stronger. I've lost all dignity. You can just forget about it. How much is dignity worth? That's right, they say a man has gold under his knees, but I've crushed my knees and still haven't found a single piece of gold. Below the platform, the disciples were discussing animatedly, making up their minds to cultivate. At the same time, their admiration and respect for the young master grew even stronger. This thing, let alone creating it, was something they couldn't have imagined even if they racked their brains. Young master, I have a friend. Wu Yan cleared his throat. I also have a friend. Hearing the disciples' voices, Yi Xiaoyao smiled and continued to impart the divine abilities. Fortunately, the young monk wasn't present. During the transmission of the techniques, no other forces were allowed to observe. Otherwise, the young monk would surely have recited the Lotus Sutra once towards Yi Xiaoyao, giving him a good brainwash. Next, I will impart the second and third divine abilities. Yi Xiaoyao smiled. The audience below instantly fell silent. Li Kun's eyes turned bloodshot, completely disregarding everything else. No matter what divine ability it was, he believed he could handle it. This divine ability is called the Fire of Wrath Demon Slaying Technique, a top-tier heavenly level technique. By burning the anger within the 7 emotions and 6 desires, one can successfully cultivate it. The angrier one gets, the stronger they become. Cultivating this divine ability only requires a little bit of impulsiveness. It's not a big problem. Yi Xiaoyao said with a smile. I suddenly feel this divine ability is ordinary, very ordinary. Heaven has eyes. The young master has finally created an ordinary divine ability. Countless disciples were stunned, then overjoyed, almost to the point of tears. As for the slight impulsiveness, they simply ignored it. Who doesn't have a temper? For Yi Xiaoyao's creation of this divine ability, it's actually quite normal. The red-faced old man pondered for a long time. It also depends on who you're comparing it to. Compared to the divine abilities of other sacred lands, this one is still unimaginable. He had heard of burning one's own blood to briefly boost strength. He had never heard of burning the 7 emotions and 6 desires. This is also a divine ability that briefly increases strength. How much of an increase is it? The old man surnamed Yue inquired. Burning anger, using it as nourishment, increases the quality and quantity of true essence. Other increases aren't possible, but the amplitude it can double. Of course, the higher the cultivation level, the smaller the increase. Yi Xiaoyao said slowly. Hiss, double. A commotion erupted all around. Everyone was incredibly shocked. This seemed even more powerful than the bloodstained demon-slaying technique. At the heavenly human realm, the bloodstained demon-slaying technique was already insufficient. The higher the cultivation level, the greater the difficulty in increasing the power of divine abilities. At our level, no matter how powerful the divine abilities are, they can only increase power by 1 or 2%. The demonic blood-burning technique can only increase power by 2 or 3%. If it could double, my combat power would skyrocket, and I would definitely suppress those demonic brats of the yin-yang sect. Wu Yan's expression changed dramatically, filled with excitement. Of course, he was only in the Dao integration realm. His cultivation was too high to double, but being able to increase it by 3 or 4% would still greatly boost his combat power. In battles between masters, even the slightest difference is fatal, let alone an increase of that much. This was also the same realm, the first reason why the yin-yang sect's demonic cultivators could hunt them down. All cultivate. Chu Bing couldn't sit still and climbed onto the platform. Li Kun wasn't very suitable next to him. After all, she was pregnant, and her emotions were clearly not suitable for such extreme fluctuations. What if she miscarried? Yi Xiaoyao didn't hesitate and imparted the wrathful demon-slaying technique to him. I'm very angry. I'm extremely angry. Chu Bing observed for a while, memorized it, and began to circulate the cultivation method. He choked, his face red, his fists clenched. Half a day passed. There was no movement. Why isn't it working? Chu Bing was stunned, feeling a little dejected. Because you weren't angry enough. My divine power is all about genuine feelings, Yi Xiaoyao said. Chu Bing scratched his head, giving a wry smile. Controlling emotions is the hardest thing to do. How do you handle this? Yi Xiaoyao narrowed his eyes and calmly said, You fought a battle with the yin-yang sect disciples, unfortunately died in battle, and your wife and child were exchanged for your rival. Your rival slept with your wife, beat your child, spent your alimony, danced disco at your grave, and desecrated your tomb. Sleeping with my wife, beating my child, and even spending my allowance, and humiliating me at my grave. Chu Bing didn't have a wife. But hearing Yi Xiaoyao's words, he involuntarily took over, his face instantly changing. His eyes became bloodshot and red. His anger flared up uncontrollably. The more he thought about it, the angrier he got. Even his skin turned red. His nose, eyes, ears, and orifices began to smoke. Your rival dug up your grave, stripped you naked, and hung you on the city wall for everyone to see. Yi Xiaoyao added fuel to the fire. He really didn't want to say this, but because Chu Bing had successfully cultivated, he had no choice but to say it. Dug up my clothes and hang me naked on the city wall. Chu Bing roared, his anger reaching its breaking point. With the surge of true essence and energy surging through his body, his eyes turned bloodshot. Taking several deep breaths, he clasped his hands and said, "Thank you, team leader." He was very grateful, but at the same time, his mind underwent a transformation. Damn, how the hell is this even possible? Wu Yan was stunned. He was utterly impressed by the team leader. This guy's words were too vicious. Ordinary people couldn't handle it. However, the effect was also extraordinarily good. The others were also gaping, exclaiming, "Holy cow!" Their admiration for the team leader grew even stronger. He stabbed someone with a knife, yet still had to express gratitude. Where was the logic in that? "Brother, what kind of true essence enhancement effect is this?" Li Kun asked expectantly. "Who are you two talking to? Don't think that just because you're pregnant I won't beat you. What are you looking at? Look again and I'll chop you to death." Zhou Bing roared, pointing at Li Kun's nose. He walked up to the person behind him, his face filled with anger. "I'm furious right now." "Oh my god, holy shit, your butt's itching, aren't you?" Li Kun's face instantly turned purple with anger. This idiotic troublemaker? He suddenly stood up, about to scold, but quickly noticed something, hurriedly lowered his head, and clutched his big belly. To cultivate to this level, absolutely no accidents could happen. Prenatal care was important. Useless. Xu Bing was foaming at the mouth, like a barrel of gunpowder ready to explode at any moment. He pointed at the 80,000 disciples below the stage and shouted, "What are you all looking at? Do you believe I'll beat you all to death?" After saying that, he looked around, searching for a brick. Damn, this guy's brain damaged. He's so angry. Little Diamond's complexion doesn't look good. Others also had gloomy faces. This toy was too arrogant. Damn it, what kind of looks are you giving me? I need a beating. Chu Bing grabbed a brick, intending to tear his eyelids apart, and directly charged down from the lectern. Clang, bang. Mount Tai crushing the peak. A group of disciples, their faces grim, swarmed forward like a hive of bees, knocking Chu Bing to the ground, pinning him down like a towering pillar. This guy was truly arrogant. Who said this was an ordinary divine ability? This temperament is too obvious. The red-faced elder stared in disbelief, frantically wiping away cold sweat. Anyone he disliked would spew venom, and after a while, he'd go after them. It feels like cultivating this divine ability makes him as hot-headed as a mad dog, biting anyone he encounters. I'd rather call him the Mad Dog Divine Ability. Elder Yue and several other elders exchanged glances, then turned to Yi Xiaoyao, sighing repeatedly. Chu Bing had cultivated for many years and was one of the elite disciples in the previous competition. His temperament was relatively gentle, and he had good connections in the Taishuan Holy Land. But now, indeed, Yi Xiaoyao's divine abilities were not so simple. Just now, Chu Bing couldn't even activate the Fire City's anger, but after successfully cultivating it, his temper immediately flared up. Little ancestor, continue teaching the divine abilities. Don't pay attention to him, Li Kun, with his large belly, glanced at Chu Bing, whose face was swollen and bruised. Yes, this divine ability is of the spirit level, Yi Xiaoyao said slowly. His voice wasn't loud, but it silenced the entire platform. The young disciples who had been beating Chu Bing also stopped, stiffly turning their heads. The dozen or so elders' eyes blazed with divine light, all of them landing on the lectern. Spiritual rank? Elder Yue seemed to have misheard, his eyes widening as he stared at Yi Xiaoyao. His sleeves trembled slightly. The spiritual rank was far superior to the heavenly rank. Even within the immortal Dao lineage, this level was a top secret, incredibly precious, and most suitable for cultivation in the Dao integration and Dao severing realms. It was the strongest divine ability below the saint. For these Dao severing realm elders, cultivating it would greatly increase their combat power. Young master, is it really the spiritual rank? Li Kun's large belly was shaking, his expression somewhat agitated. A group of Heavenly Realm and Tao Integration Realm youths also gathered around, holding their breath. That's right, it's the spiritual rank. Yi Xiaoyao nodded. This was not unexpected. In the sacred land, although spirit-level divine abilities exist, their cultivation is incredibly difficult, almost terrifying. Those with slightly less talent might not even achieve minor mastery in 10 years. Even someone like the Taijuan Saint Sun, who struck the six-ringed bell of the Great Tao with his exceptional talent, still needed half a year. As for achieving major mastery, it requires not only time but also the opportunity to comprehend the profound mysteries within. After he finished speaking, countless people were stunned, their minds somewhat unsettled by the sudden turn of events. The young master can actually create spirit-level divine abilities. Those old geezers of the demonic Tao will surely not be able to remain calm. Don't even mention them. Who in the 9 great sacred lands can remain calm? Spirit-level divine abilities are already at the mid-level of the Kangyuan realm. Their influence is too great. The old man's face flushed with excitement. In the distance, the three-eyed true monarch descended from the void, stepping onto the preaching platform, staring intently at Yi Xiaoyao, his eyes filled with shock and a terrifying brilliance. The hands of this demonic group will ultimately be handed over to my Taijuan high-ranking officials. Little Diamond, however, didn't have many other thoughts. This was the only thing on his mind. He suddenly became excited. These illustrious, majestic old men were finally going to become perverted. He really wanted to see what kind of monstrous forms these elders and supreme elders would transform into. Little ancestor, even if it means doubting 10 fetuses, I want to cultivate. I'll go first. Wu Yan couldn't suppress his desire and suddenly leapt onto the platform. I'm willing to doubt 100 fetuses. I'll cultivate first. I'm willing to carry 1,000 fetuses. Get out of here. The young men's eyes turned red, scrambling to be the first to cultivate. Although they possessed other spirit stages, after years of cultivation, they hadn't reached the perfect realm. The difficulty was almost overwhelming them. And the little ancestor's divine power. The speed of cultivation is renowned for its speed. Who can resist this temptation? No matter what great price they face, it's not worth mentioning. Everyone go down. Let Wu Yan handle this. Seeing the commotion, Yi Xiaoyao raised his eyebrows and waved his hand. Hearing this, the young men reluctantly retreated, their faces showing unwillingness. This made the three-eyed true monarch's eyelids twitch slightly. Even his words weren't always so easy to follow. This is the cultivation method. Take a look. Yi Xiaoyao casually handed a scroll of Zhuan paper to Wu Yan. The scroll contained over a dozen sheets of Zhuan paper, recording the contents of the cultivation method, far surpassing the heavenly level. Thank you, team. Wu Yan rubbed his hands together, his eyes filled with fervor, eagerly taking the paper. Then he began to examine it carefully. Half a day later, his expression gradually stiffened, and he looked up in disbelief, almost throwing the paper away in fright. Seeing the young master nod, his face was full of shock, his head buzzing. This cultivation method. It was somewhat terrifying. Young master, if I die, please find me a place with good feng shui. Wu Yan swallowed hard. This divine ability was called the decapitation demon slaying technique. He had heard of the young master's creation of the limb-severing demon slaying technique, but that also involved severing limbs. Without 2 legs, one could still live. Moreover, severed limbs could regenerate. Without a head, could one still live? This couldn't regenerate. If things went wrong, one would die. And it would need to be buried underground, a whole new world. This was like a potato. Don't worry if you die. I'll burn you as paper offerings, Yi Xiaoyao said calmly. Thank you. Wu Yan forced a smile that was uglier than crying, channeling his cultivation technique, and tremblingly drew out a sharp, large saber. Thump. His head was severed. Blood gushed out. On the platform above, the head rolled like lightning to the feet of the three-eyed true monarch. He was stunned for a moment, lowering his head to look at this watermelon-like object, wondering if he was hallucinating. What the hell is this? Below the platform, 80,000 disciples looked at the blood-soaked object, feeling a chill down their necks, cold sweat dripping down, and standing there dumbfounded. This wasn't some dry corpse whose head could be reattached. This was a dead person. I must be blind or I'm dreaming, a young man muttered to himself, a chill running down his spine. Although it's said that in the Tao integration realm, the divine soul can leave the body and travel at night, but if the head is severed, without a heavenly sacred medicine, the physical body absolutely cannot survive. When the physical body dies, the divine soul only has one path, to possess another body and be reborn. But the price is too high. It requires rebuilding, or reaching the saint level. A single drop of blood, a single wisp of soul, can regenerate the physical body, making one immortal and indestructible. I'm not dead. The head suddenly opened its mouth and spoke, its face filled with surprise. The three-eyed true monarch was startled and instinctively stomped on the head. Hey, 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 Supreme Elder, don't stomp on me. The head's face turned pale, smelling of foul, rotten fishy odor. The smell of Tai Chong. The three-eyed true monarch's skin twitched, and he moved his foot away. His third eye opened, its clear divine light revealing the trick. In the void invisible to the naked eye, a mass of small threads connected the head and neck, forming an extremely complex network, imbued with divine consciousness and true essence. This divine ability, it truly is a miracle. The three-eyed true monarch was shocked and full of admiration. It was hard to imagine how it was accomplished. This guy is immortal, holy cow. Truly bizarre, worthy of being a spirit-level divine ability, truly miraculous. The young master is too amazing. Only someone with such profound divine ability skills could create such a heaven-defying divine ability. Hearing the head's words, countless disciples below the stage were shaken to their core, their eyes filled with admiration and disbelief as they looked at Yi Xiaoyao. Not dead. And he can even talk. But no matter how they looked at it, they felt terrified. The most exaggerated thing was that they saw the headless body swaying, pick up its own head and hold it in its chest. I helped you cultivate successfully, and I'll also teach everyone a type of exercise to prevent you from starting your cultivation. I feel bored. My Taijuan group still cares a lot about its disciples. Yi Xiaoyao stood up and smiled. Help me cultivate, how can that help me? Wu Yan was stunned. Before he could react, Yi Xiaoyao snatched the head from his chest. Then Yi Xiaoyao flicked his large hand, throwing the demon-binding rope out, and transmitted a divine thought to the spirit within. The demon-binding rope, upon hearing, immediately became alert, like a lamppost, and formed a circle at the top. This sport is called playing basketball? Yi Xiaoyao stared at the basketball hoop formed by the demon-binding rope, his shoulders swaying, performing the classic taikun movement from his previous life. Wu Yan's head slammed into the ground repeatedly. Yi Xiaoyao continued to hit the head beside him while charging forward. Shoot! Yi Xiaoyao suddenly stomped his foot, his body leaping into the air, performing a beautiful basketball shooting motion. With a bang, the head accurately hit the basketball hoop, then crashed to the ground. This divine ability requires the head to constantly collide with hard objects, a 360-degree, no blind angle training of the skull, 10 million times in total. Obviously, this exercise is very suitable. Yi Xiaoyao landed, his right hand stroking the head, just like bouncing a basketball, explaining to the crowd. Bang, 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 the head collided with the podium, the speed increasing rapidly until only afterimages could be seen. Wu Yan felt dizzy and his head ached intensely. His brain felt like it was about to fly out. Li Kun looked at Wu Yan's head, which was making a loud banging sound, then glanced at the calm and composed group, his scalp tingling, and he couldn't help but recoil. Is this what you call exercise? Tisk, this, little group, do you want to hear what you're saying? The disciples were all stunned. This exercise, if it were something else, seemed a bit childish, but this was a human head. If other holy lands came to Taijuan and saw a group of disciples smashing human heads for fun, they'd probably be scared to death. What kind of perverted cultivation method is this? Senior brother, please bring some mud. Yi Xiaoyao's hands were still busy, looking at the three-eyed true monarch. Grave soil. The three-eyed true monarch's eyelids twitched, and he hesitated before speaking. He was also suitable to cultivate spirit-level divine abilities. If he could quickly achieve mastery, it would greatly boost his strength. But for him, this supreme elder, to pick a head and smash it for fun, he couldn't bear the humiliation. The positions of elder and supreme elder of the Taijuan Holy Land aren't solely determined by strength. They also encompass teaching abilities. They impart knowledge and guidance to their disciples. To put it bluntly, they are masters. They are very conscious of their appearance, whether walking, sitting, or lying down. No ordinary soil quality is fine. That's good then. Three-eyed true monarch breathed a sigh of relief, turned and left, wondering what this guy was up to now. Just like that, it's acceptable. Yes, for the sake of becoming stronger, I accept. After watching for a long time, numerous young disciples gritted their teeth intending to cultivate. Although it was quite strange, for the sake of becoming stronger, what was a little pain compared to that? Just like that, you're thinking too much. This is ultimately a spirit-level divine ability. The cultivation method isn't that simple. Yi Xiaoyao smiled and shook his head. The frequency of the blows to people's heads in his hand was terrifyingly high, the sound of shattering walls almost turning them into smoke. The incredibly sturdy preaching platform was riddled with holes. Yi Xiaoyao, using his cultivation, unleashed a high-frequency barrage of blows, 10 million times in no time. What? This isn't even simple. This isn't enough. Li Kan's eyelids twitched wildly. He felt utterly insane. Still not enough. The other disciples' mouths trembled, their eyes wide with fear. They were filled with unease, wondering how much more cultivation was needed. A moment later, the three-eyed true monarch brought a layer of earth and threw it beneath the preaching platform. Yi Xiaoyao nodded slightly. After 10 million blows, Wu Yan's head was thoroughly tempered. He lifted his head. Damn, it's terrible. His skull is cracked. Zhou Bing looked at Wu Yan's bloodied head, almost split into 5 pieces, and couldn't help but shudder. His violent temper had significantly diminished. Is this even usable? A young man questioned, noting the extent of the damage. Therefore, it needs cultivation, and the head needs to be forged into a sturdy divine weapon. Yi Xiaoyao smiled, his eyes narrowed, as he dug a hole in the mud, threw the head in, and then buried it. This scene astonished the crowd. They didn't understand anything, only that it was very powerful. But the next moment, Yi Xiaoyao stomped his feet twice, solidifying the mud. Then he scooped out a puddle of spiritual water and poured it in. This is tiger fangs, black ox bones and meat, and other indescribable things, containing a large amount of nutrients. Yi Xiaoyao took out a cloth bag and dumped a pile of black fertilizer into it. Then he took out some medicinal herbs and powerful medicines, ground them into a fine powder, and sprinkled it all over the mud. The heads of the group will absorb enough nutrients and refine the energy. In a few days, they can successfully cultivate. If weeds grow, since you have no heads, you need to remove the weeds or use artificial herbicides to prevent them from stealing your nutrients. Yi Xiaoyao explained meticulously, like an agricultural expert. Three-eyed true monarch was full of question marks. He was completely stunned. Is this a cultivation method? This looks like planting rice. Be confident, discard the likeness. This is indeed planting rice. When I was 7 or 8 years old, I followed my father to plant rice, and it was like this. First, bury the seeds, then water them, and then apply some fertilizer. A group of talented young men below the stage gaped, discussing loudly, their faces filled with disbelief. Looking at the young man's demeanor, he truly seemed like a seasoned farmer. I was wrong. I thought my imagination was rich enough, but compared to this young man, I'm nothing. This cultivation method is even more terrifying than being buried alive. Zhu Bing's scalp tingled, feeling his worldview being torn apart. The impact was too great. It could be called the most bizarre cultivation method, extremely cruel. Unfortunately, my cultivation is only at the true core realm. Cultivating spirit-level divine abilities is too much of a stretch. Let's quickly increase our cultivation. Many young men's eyes showed determination. This powerful divine ability, if successfully cultivated, would directly boost their combat power. Who wouldn't be tempted? Should we cultivate it or not? That's the question. The red-faced elder and all the other elders whispered to each other, hesitating. Not wanting to cultivate it would be beneath their status. But this was a spirit-level ability. This level of divine ability held a strong attraction even for Dao-slaying kings, not to mention them, who were Dao-integrating. Most importantly, as elders, they had the responsibility of teaching the lower-level disciples the techniques. If a disciple asked and they couldn't answer, that would be truly embarrassing. How could they continue to thrive in the sacred land afterward? Cultivate it. Why not cultivate it? Cultivate it secretly, and no one will know. Yes, that makes sense. All the elders made up their minds and decided to cultivate it. Even if I drag the Holy Master and the other Supreme Elders down with me, and they all cultivate, who would dare call me a pervert? Three-Eyed True Monarch's expression was indifferent, but he harbored evil intentions. He had only cultivated one divine ability of their Xiaoyao school, and that was the painted skin transformation technique. Senior brother, the rare treasures aren't enough. Can you lend me some money? Yi Xiaoyao glanced at Three-Eyed True Monarch. Three-Eyed True Monarch remained silent in front of everyone. He could only take out his treasured spiritual herbs and medicinal plants, crush them into powder, and use them as fertilizer. Thank you, Supreme Elder. Wu Yan, with his headless body, excitedly ran over, uttering words from his stomach, and bowed respectfully. Ah, ha ha. Three-Eyed True Monarch looked up at the gaping hole in front of him. His face twitched, and he forced a smile. He could see his stomach. What other divine abilities do you have? Teach them all at once? I'm getting a little tired. Three-Eyed True Monarch rubbed his chest and sighed. His heart couldn't take it anymore. Okay. Yi Xiaoyao smiled and immediately taught over 20 heaven-level divine abilities. As for breaking the law demon eye and empty sword technique, those would be taught by the Taijuan Saint Sun, so he didn't need to. After the divine abilities were taught, the area below the preaching platform was in an uproar. Everyone looked at the pile of papers in their hands, unable to help but admire them. They looked at the young master with eyes full of adoration and awe. These divine abilities were all extraordinary. One finger of goodness, cutting off 5 fingers and reattaching them into one. This is truly one finger of goodness. Zhou Bing looked at the papers and praised. Damn it. He couldn't help but be impressed. I feel this is the strangest thing, the imposter demon slaying technique. This is a visual and auditory illusion technique, specifically for escaping. Pull out 3,000 leg hairs, create 3,000 illusions of yourself, and use the illusion to confuse legs. Several sheets of paper were stuffed into the mud, and a sigh came from within Wu Yan's head. What about girls without leg hair? A weak female disciple asked. Other hairs will do. Little Diamond said nonchalantly. Bang! A brick hit Little Diamond on the back of the head, making a clanging sound. The weak woman's beautiful face flushed red, and she glared. Pervert. Little Diamond was bewildered. What was this woman thinking? How could she be a pervert? I think this sword technique is the most powerful. Ghost body sword technique. When the ghost sword is drawn, you can't see. You can move around. LS con cm Giphy tuyen, ji trong ko kuden hao fap ken kang dt myang. Nathan thing non vien kang, ni ti via mtbgc, lien ko the sia chi k juk non trong na mtcm juk. Ta cm the vien lamin na vien, ta en jiter ma kang. MDN, VN, Dian VN Hun, BT Chuck, Geekik Thine Thang, I Luck Con Kang Nach, Tajima Naban Thunter Ma Kang. Phi Thong Zem Trung, Nalian Uthaban Kai Thun, Trong Na MT Luck LNVN Kong, Kang Dung Hit Tin Luck. Kaiji, Wai Chanao, Hong E2 O Nam GT Thine SCC Chinyang M Nen Liat, Trong MTBCC Len LCC Quang, Gin Kyun T Giphy T and Ben Trong T TM Men Kang Fap Nay. Long I MTG, H NHC Trong La Kuk Lui TTC Trong La Kung La Tri Tim Fan Fan I. Their hands trembled as they glanced around. Seeing no one paying attention, they quickly searched for their cultivation techniques. They had cultivated the sunflower manual, and now it had grown back. It had to be said, it was incredibly powerful. It was 1 or 2 times larger. Now their waist strength was failing them. They were lacking for kidneys to maintain their vigor. Cough cough, I remember now, my mother is calling me for dinner. Goodbye, little group. A young man, as if remembering something, immediately bowed to Yi Xiaoyao, then galloped towards the outside of the Taijuan Holy Land. Just as he left the preaching platform, he encountered the black donkey strolling around. It was as if it were patrolling its territory, swaggering proudly. Donkey brother, can you lend me a kidney? The young man's eyes gleamed, staring at the black donkey's waist. What kind of thing? The black donkey was bewildered. Anyway, you have 2 kidneys, lend me one. No problem. The young man's eyes were filled with longing. Lend me a kidney. Are you sick? The black donkey was shocked, looking at the young man's smooth, gleaming eyes, and swung its hooves to run away. Little master, I want to go back and cultivate my techniques. Little master bids farewell. Little master. Numerous disciples also reacted, excitedly standing up, bowing, and then running towards the outside of the Taijuan Holy Land. The northwest of the Taijuan Holy Land is the 10,000 Demon Mountain Range. There shouldn't be too many demon beasts inside. Yishaya remained silent, shaking his head. I'm going back to seclusion. You all quickly cultivate. It will be easier to deal with those little devils from the Yin-Yang sect. Yishaya waved his hand, turned around, and walked towards the small building. This time, with over 20 divine abilities and 1 spirit-level technique, the system's reward will definitely not be bad. He was now just a hair's breadth away from entering the heavenly human realm. At the same time, this was also the crucial stage for solidifying his immortal foundation, related to his future enlightenment and becoming an emperor. It absolutely could not be taken lightly. Not long after, in the main hall, the Supreme Juan Holy Lord sat upright in his high seat, gazing at the declaration in his hand, his eyelids twitching. This decapitation demon slaying technique is a spirit-level technique. Did Weiyan really succeed in cultivating it? The Holy Lord looked at the three-eyed true monarch who had reported, his expression uncertain. He didn't care much about the heavenly level techniques given his status and cultivation, but the spirit-level technique held immense significance. Without a saint, the Dao-slaying king was the absolute pillar of strength, and spirit-level divine abilities greatly boosted his combat power at this level. This means that after cultivating the Dao-slaying king technique, they have the hope of killing those demonic cultivators of the same realm. Those guys can also enter the saint realm. Once they become saints, their destructive power increases to a terrifying height, wreaking havoc in all directions. Moreover, saints are extremely difficult to kill. Even if their physical bodies are shattered, they can still be resurrected. Power is illogical. Being able to crush a demonic cultivator with a chance of entering the saint realm is absolutely a merit of immeasurable value. This divine ability is indeed real. Weiyan is about to succeed. Three-eyed true monarch said confidently. Yes, the news of Ziyao creating a spirit-level divine ability must be sealed. Even if the news spreads, the later the better. To prevent the Yin-Yang sect from increasing the intensity of the assassination, I don't want to see the assassination incident from last time happen again. The Supreme Elder of Taijuan's expression was solemn. Looking down at the many Supreme Elders below, his gaze was cold. Yes, many Supreme Elders were terrified, not daring to be disrespectful, and immediately responded. As Yijaya's divine abilities grew stronger and stronger, his status became incomparable, not inferior to that of a saint. Even without his Yu family identity, he was an extremely important figure in Taijuan. Of course, he also had privileges. As long as he wanted resources, Taijuan would absolutely not spare any effort to supply them. Even a saint himself would personally intervene to search for what he wanted in the Kangyuan realm. Alas, Taijuan Holy Land has begun to suffer losses because of him. Since he embarked on the path of cultivation, he has never once requested cultivation resources. The Supreme Elder of Taijuan sighed softly, his eyes filled with complex emotions. Since he began creating divine abilities, the cultivation speed of disciples below the spirit realm had clearly skyrocketed, catching up with the demonic Dao overall. Before long, he will surpass them. That's right. Three-eyed true monarch also sighed. Since he imparted the divine technique, his purpose is indeed to strike at the disciples of the Yin-Yang sect. We absolutely cannot let him down. You all go back and keep a close watch on your disciples, and cultivate diligently. Wait a little longer, then send them out to counterhunt and destroy the Yin-Yang sect. The voice of the Taijuan Holy Lord was like thunder, without a doubt. At night, the moon was bright and the stars were sparse. In the small building, Yi Xiaoyao sat cross-legged on a cushion, and finally, the long-awaited system sound echoed in his ears. Ding! The number of cultivators of the spiritual infant self-destruction demonic technique has reached 30,000. Reward: gold, wood, water, fire, earth, and 5 elements heavenly medicine. Ding! The number of cultivators of the fire of wrath demonic technique has reached 20,000. Reward: 10 pounds of heavenly mandate spring water. Ding! The number of practitioners of the 4-kidney demonic technique has reached 80,000. Reward: the aphrodisiac and kidney nourishing pill. Ding! The number of practitioners of the head-cutting demonic technique has reached 6,000. Reward: ancient god's blood. Ding! Yi Zhouyao's mouth twitched, revealing a joyful smile. The 5 elements heavenly medicine was enough to push his cultivation to the heavenly human realm. The heavenly mandate spring water, to put it bluntly, instantly replenished his blood and mana with a single sip, an essential item for traveling, something even saints craved. The aphrodisiac and kidney-nourishing pill was an even more coveted treasure, something even saints were crazy about. The heavenly demon sex sect leader had searched for the materials to refine this pill for 800 years, and to this day, he had been unable to gather the necessary ingredients. It's clear that it values skill. Eating one pill cures frequent urination, incomplete urination, prostatitis, premature ejaculation, and is the first choice for men. It significantly enhances stamina. Of course, it's not just limited to one aspect. If Yi Xiao engages in intense combat, his physical and mental strength can only last an hour. Taking this pill can extend it to 2 hours. It's an unparalleled treasure for high-frequency combat. Ancient God's blood, that ancient god from the 10 great ancient imperial clans. Yi Xiao held a bottle of blood, and even through the bottle, he could feel the overwhelming pressure within. Although it was only a small bottle, its value was immeasurable, comparable to a sacred medicine. A mature ancient god has a head at least 100 meters long, and legend says it's formed from the laws of the 3,000 Great Tao. It doesn't cultivate true essence or divine soul, only physical strength. In terms of physical prowess, even the true dragon clan would have to stand behind it. The ancient god clan could rank among the top 10 great ancient imperial clans, relying on their physical prowess. The path of body cultivation for the human race was largely created using this race. With this small bottle of ancient god blood, my physical prowess can reach the mid-states of the heavenly human realm. Yi Xiaoyao's eyes flickered with ambition. In the mythical era, human males and ancient god clan females combined, giving rise to a unique type called the giant spirit divine body. This type of physique is most suitable for body cultivation, and even divine bodies of the same realm would find it difficult to break through its defenses. If I could devour the essence of this physique and combine it with the Buddha golden body, my physical prowess would be on par with a true ancient god clan member. Absolutely no problem. Yi Xiaoyao was very eager. He would definitely find this type of physique if he had the chance. He wanted to see if the demonic path possessed it. Of course, he didn't know how human males and ancient god clan females combined. A short man over 2 meters tall, a woman hundreds of meters tall. With Yi Xiaoyao's usual simple and naive imagination, it was truly unimaginable. When the ancient feast arrives, I'll observe carefully and think about creating a body refining technique similar to that of the ancient god clan, Yi Xiaoyao thought to himself. Young people nowadays pursue the word great. He took out the 5 elements heavenly elixir. Gold, wood, water, fire, and earth, 5 colors emitting divine light. Yi Xiaoyao directly devoured it. A vast surge of energy exploded. Yi Xiaoyao quickly activated the Chaos Immortal Demon technique, rapidly refining it. Boom! Yi Xiaoyao had originally reached the peak of the spirit realm. If nothing unexpected happened, he would have directly entered the heavenly human realm. However, to solidify his cultivation, he didn't advance, but instead used the 5 elements heavenly elixir to strengthen his spirit realm foundation. The spirit infant within his body didn't swell, but as the heavenly elixir refined it, it became more solid and distinct. He then continued to consume other heavenly elixirs, constantly strengthening his foundation. After 3 days, the spirit infant within his body resembled a real person, its pores clearly visible. At this moment, he no longer suppressed it. He naturally broke through the barrier and entered the heavenly human realm. The spirit infant within his body grew at least 5 times stronger, simultaneously breaking the barrier between spirit and flesh, merging with his physical body. Streams of true essence permeated his entire body, every part of his being. This was the fundamental principle of regenerating broken limbs. At the same time, the physical body's compatibility with heaven and earth is higher, dissolving into heaven and earth, controlling heaven and earth. This is also the unity of heaven and man. The ninefold heaven-human realm is the level of integration with heaven and earth. Integrating 90% is the ninefold, and 10% is perfection. Rejection because of a mortal body. Yi Xiaoyao frowned, opening his eyes. As he entered the heaven-human realm, the rejection of heaven and earth's vital energy became even more intense, making it impossible to integrate. This meant he would never be able to enter the second stage of heaven human. For any other physique, this would be impossible. If I can't integrate, I'll just force my way in. Yi Xiaoyao sneered, circulating the chaos immortal demon technique, and strands of chaotic energy emanated from his dantian. If others' integration with heaven and earth was like water, then he was like jelly, only able to tear open a small gap and forcefully push his way in, forcibly controlling it. In an instant, Yi Xiaoyao's perception of heaven and earth became even clearer, and his control over the Yuan She increased. I pushed through one level. This is the first stage of the heavenly human realm. Yi Xiaoyao smiled. If other cultivators saw this, they would probably be astonished. Most cultivators communicate with heaven and earth, slowly integrating, but he, on the other hand, directly pushed through. The moment he entered the first stage of the heavenly human realm, the divine soul in his forehead felt as if it had taken a powerful tonic, growing stronger and more solid. At the same time, Yi Xiaoyao's body vibrated at a high frequency, beginning to glow. The Tai Yin Dao body, Yin Yang Dao body, Asura divine body, and Shadow Dao body various anomalies floated behind him. Two white shadows, male and female, intertwined, creating a hazy, strange phenomenon. There was also a gigantic black shadow, and a completely icy black sea. Most striking, however, was a towering figure, entirely blood red, like a blood asura crawling out of hell. Four great anomalies, all converging on one body. The terrifying pressure of these anomalies shook the entire small building, as if it could collapse at any moment. Such a miracle was unprecedented. Its spread would surely shake the entire world. Integrate! Yi Xiaoyao stood up, the four great anomalies merging into his physical body. In an instant, his jet black hair turned blood red, radiating a chilling aura. The black sea and the black shadow merged in his eyes. His white robes also turned blood red. The entire being was filled with an oppressive feeling that made it difficult to breathe. Reaching the heavenly human realm, the Tao body and divine body's anomalies were completely awakened, and his combat power was far greater than that of the spirit realm. It could be said to be a great breakthrough. As his cultivation increased, the strength brought about by his physique would become increasingly evident. The anomalies merged with his body. His combat power surged. Just relying on the anomalies to enhance my cultivation is enough to suppress late-stage heavenly humans. Yi Xiaoyao expressed great satisfaction. With the added power of his physical body, few in the heavenly human realm could be his match. This is holy cow. Why is it so abnormal? Yi Xiaoyao felt something, suddenly lowered his head to look at his blood-red robe, his face turning pale. He saw that the yin-yang Dao body anomalies, which couldn't surpass the Asura divine body, were imprinted on his clothes. Two figures, a man and a woman, intertwined. At first glance, it looked like he was wearing a spring-themed painting. Maom Nijang Heo the GCC the Ko Nji Hyan Ra. That du Dao Non Mt Chit Ji Jianghen. Trang Ji Jianghen M Chen Bian Ding Jing Ngua Ke. Henko Mt Lui Kich GCC Bite. Mula Kanon Tong BD Mt Ming Ellen. Ko La Ko the Lam Chou in Non Turluan Muluk. Dijang Heo the Trian Vin Sao Ki Thictine, Non Mt Chip, Lien Muan Kung Hin Song Tiu Vecht. Dai Tiu Dao Lao Abdi Hai Lien, Tran Thithi Jian For Lim Du Tang. Kai Ne Vecht, Lien La Hen Ti Juan DGC. Via Sao Kien Ji Fong Mt Chit and Non, Kang Phi Thun El Wen Lien SN Ba Vibang Engan Thong Kung. Dijang Tong Sang LPP Gi, Lien Lo Lui Vecht Ne. Enchiam Koam Dijang Ji Jian Kang Phi Ma Heo. Ku Enji Kang Phi Chin Heo. Ko Kai Ko Mt Kang Hai Si Kim Tun Hai Siam Sha Ji Jian. Du Tang Sao Ki Thictine, Gi Theo Gugi Vien SP, Mt Huing and Bam, and Turk Than Ji Jian. TUT. Dong Tian. Beseech Trong La Kung HCCLS Fong Fong HELA Zung Vao, LPPTIC Siench Dik Non Ben Fia. Kang Ko Chayan, Chala Tran Viak Tiu Lion Now Ra Mt Chit Yang Ten Thai, Kakangui Ra Ngoi Sai. Dai Tiu Dao Ko Teo. Now Ra Mt Chit Yang Ten, Liun H Hai Kamfa Hai. Beseech Trong La Engengi, Viri Jate Rung Ni Chayan, K La Lin Siench Ko the Lam Ra Yang Ten. Thea Non Kung Ko Kane. BXT Kwahen Kuenji Thik Thi Kang Hai Miu, HCCLS Louis Jung. Dive to Dao Gianpk. Tip tic xcpben, zut racha tai si mau bienuen angisi, bthu line hoa egypther. Hin muan hem than the fat tong lanti thean non trung kcnpg. Hin cnpg nay. Hen now, thong fong ang mdn ko the sin hin kui kung. Kang fi heningui anti kai lian chit, thine thong mdn hun, ko tring dung. Dive to Dao si the ni lin kim kwang jung na la niam lin mt tang kim sn. Theo tai si mau bai chip thur, kim scc dn hong trong mau they chem thu. Ngui dao via dgi, ko the fat hyen. Mao ca hen gtgn kim scc, luk leung kang ang dang silan. Him thi, thai dian fat ka kim then. Leon quanti xang, tang ki hin tip, sao kang fap. Nak the niu ne hen hep heocnch. Kang ko hin tip, sao kang fab, newt lay ni lion the bo dgc kang vien dong, kang cash now lion hoa, tong chi siang nak then. Hin sang snm hon sao. That du dao rakt, cis ec hip thur zong tt, the fat tong niu, hike tdc hun fin nia g turk thin kim scc, siki fat ra thine thin hao quang, ls, ra ding viev trang gium. Jung de la trong chamiku kai el tai lnju g fat ka. Luk Leung, Kang Sai bite LM 150 Triu can. He let out a soft breath, the air like an arrow, instantly piercing the floor. Clang, you have successfully demonstrated the Buddha's golden body. Your divine power is even more profound, combined with your understanding of the Buddha's golden body. You have created the Buddha's divine power, great mighty heavenly dragon. Great mighty heavenly dragon, palm technique, top tier heavenly level, nemesis of demons. You only need demons to help you cultivate, resist the temptation, and you can successfully cultivate it. Mentally, it will create a triggering obstacle, such as seeing a demon will instantly cause you to go berserk, determined to subdue it. Yi Xiangya was stunned, then suddenly laughed. Hey, this little monk can't escape. He was originally thinking about how to reform the little monk and seize Mount Ling. This divine power is an opportunity. He'll teach it to him, so he can return and correct some of the bad customs of Mount Ling. Suddenly, he closed his eyes again, beginning to comprehend a vast amount of cultivation techniques and scriptures in his mind. At the same time, the young monk, dressed in white robes and with a bald head, walked along the mountain path of the Taijuan Holy Land. Today, he finally mustered the courage to discuss Buddhist teachings with Chen Nangshuan. Last time at the Heavenly Master Holy Land, Chen Nangshuan had gouged out his eyes, almost scaring him to death. After regaining his composure, he thought it was a test from Benefactor Yi. Converting Chen Nangshuan, letting Benefactor Yi see my sincerity, will surely move him. Then, converting him again shouldn't be difficult. The young monk revealed a joyful smile, incredibly radiant in the early morning sunlight. As he walked along, he saw a young man. Then, with a gentle expression, he stepped forward, clasped his hands in front of his chest, and recited a Buddhist mantra. Amitabha Buddha, benefactor, may I ask where Mr. Chen Nangshuan resides? Who told you to look at me? You dare look at me? Bald donkey, don't think that just because you have no hair I won't dare hate you. Chu Bing's face turned purple with anger, pointing at the young monk and shouting, little monk didn't look at you, really didn't. The young monk's face turned slightly pale with fear, and he quickly waved his hand. His beautiful mood instantly soured. You still dare to look at me? Chu Bing laughed in anger, his expression gradually becoming ferocious. He directly pulled out a knife and chopped off his thumb, blood gushing out. I told you to look at me. I told you to look at me. Chu Bing lowered his head and destroyed his finger, muttering hatefully. He continued until all 5 fingers were destroyed and joined together, forming an incredibly long finger. I was just passing by. The young monk felt dizzy, his head spinning. He quickly turned around and sprinted down the mountain as fast as he could. After running a mile, he looked back and saw the young man's face blazing with anger, his right hand holding a large, finger-sized flag, his left hand wielding a machete like a mad dog, chasing after him. The young monk's face turned pale, and he once again ran headlong, tears welling up in his eyes. He had only asked for directions. Fortunately, he was strong and could run 10 miles before finally escaping the young man. This man has a hot temper. I'd rather find someone with a good temper to ask for directions. The young monk felt unlucky, glancing around. He spotted a bald-headed young man standing ahead, his back to him. Excuse me, sir. Where does Mr. Chen Nangshuan reside? He spoke in a low, polite voice. However, the other party didn't respond. Sir? The young monk was stunned and asked again. The other party still ignored him. He couldn't help but circle around to the front, about to ask again. This? The young monk stared blankly at the young man's hair. No, it must be the back of his head. Impossible. The young monk stared for a long time, then suddenly shuddered and ran away. That young man had no facial features, no face. He's gone mad. A sound came from Feng Qi's stomach. Damn, you dare step on me. The young monk hadn't run more than a few steps when a sound came from beneath his feet. He stiffly turned his head to look, only to see a human head emerging from the mud, glaring angrily at him. There was a footprint on his face, and beside him, a headless figure approached, holding an iron shovel. You! The young monk's face was completely devoid of color, his legs trembling with fear. Having grown up in Buddhism, he had never seen such a battle before. Haha, I heard you say just now, you're looking for the King of Dust, right? He's on that mountain over there. Just then, a gentle voice rang out. The young monk, as if hearing a voice from nature, quickly turned around, clasped his hands in front of his chest, and bowed. Thank you, this lady, this. He stared blankly at the pregnant young man in front of him, not knowing how to address him. Ah, Amitabha Buddha. The young monk trembled and once again sprinted away as fast as he could. His eyes were bloodshot. His face was filled with resentment. He was just looking for someone to ask for directions. The result was that there wasn't a single person who looked human. How is he? Feng Che, who cultivated the formless demon-slaying technique, walked over, a faceless figure lying on the ground. This little monk is crazy. He dares to step on me. Wu Yan's head spewed fragrant smoke. This is a guest from the Western Heaven. We, as righteous people, cannot delay him. Li Kun, with his large belly, said, That's right, we are righteous people. We shouldn't argue with him. The dead man agreed. Meanwhile, the little monk, galloping all the way, finally arrived at the mountain where the big-bellied man talked a lot. He looked at the graveyard, his innocent big eyes showing confusion. Is Mr. Chen the gravekeeper? He scratched his bald head, pacing back and forth in the graveyard. Mr. Chen Nangshuan, Mr. Chen? The young monk couldn't find the tomb guardian's chamber, nor did he see a single ghostly figure, so he cautiously called out, bang. A hand suddenly reached out from the tomb and grabbed his ankle. Chen Nangshuan's head emerged from the earth of the tomb, staring at the young monk. What do you want with me? Time passed quickly. 12 days flew by in the blink of an eye, during which several groups of young disciples who had fled returned and met with the sect leader. Late that night, the entire Taijuan Holy Land was in chaos, with screams of agony echoing from the pavilions. The Taijuan Holy Lord and the various supreme elders frowned, pacing back and forth outside the pavilions, like husbands waiting for their wives to give birth. At the same time, hundreds and thousands of young disciples outside the pavilions were also waiting, watching. Yi Xiaoyao lay on a rattan chair, yawning, while Feng Queer patted his shoulder. Your Taijuan Holy Land is too exaggerated. 200 young men giving birth. Could it really produce children? Feng Queer's watery, peach blossom eyes glanced at the rows of pavilions, shrinking back slightly. Since following Yi Xiaoyao into the Taijuan Holy Land, she felt that this Holy Land was increasingly sinister. The high-ranking officials were all human, but the lowest ranks were becoming more and more perverted, with hardly anyone resembling a human. Who knows? Yi Xiaoyao shrugged. Just then, a scream suddenly stopped. Then an old woman, resembling a midwife, emerged from the pavilion with a surprised expression, holding a baby, and loudly exclaimed, Congratulations, Holy Master! Congratulations, Holy Master! Li Kun has given birth. A boy? A girl? No? The Taijuan Holy Master's eyebrows relaxed, and he laughed loudly, but then his expression stiffened slightly, and he couldn't help but snap. This line sounded a little strange. As soon as the baby came out, the numerous supreme elders were greatly excited and all gathered around. They had long been curious about this divine ability. After all, being able to cultivate a second nascent soul was incredibly shocking and unprecedented. They had been waiting for this day for a long time. Hey, Holy Lord, look how much this child resembles you. One of the supreme elders chuckled. He resembles your father. Holy Lord Taijuan angrily retorted, his heart filled with resentment. This old man was too ugly. Suddenly, his gaze shifted, his eyes flashing with spiritual light, staring intently at the infant. He saw a tiny figure, identical to Li Kun, lying in the midwife's arms, emitting a green light, with a simple, unadorned expression. So handsome. What a good appearance, the first time I've seen an infant exposed to the outside world. One by one, the young disciples crowded around, burying their heads in Wu Yan's chest, praising him profusely. They say that when a baby is born, it must cry. If it doesn't cry, you spank its little bottom, otherwise it will become mute in the future. Feng Queer poked her little head out, reminding them. After she finished speaking, the Taijuan Holy Lord and numerous supreme elders looked on with unchanging expressions, their eyes unfriendly. They all stiffened, mechanically turning their heads away. This is just a divine power transformed into a spirit infant. It's not a real person at all. If this thing really cried, these old geezers could scare us to death on the spot. Yishaya shook his head silently. Wah wah wah. Just as he finished speaking, the simple little thing suddenly cried loudly. The piercing sound echoed through the night sky, making everyone's hair stand on end. With a clatter, the midwife directly threw the spirit infant to the ground. The supreme elder of Taijuan, the three-eyed true monarch, and the other supreme elders were also terrified, constantly retreating, their eyes filled with horror as they looked at Ling Ying. Holy cow! Wu Yan and the others' hair stood on end, scrambling to escape. Feng Queer, dressed in a red pleated dress, her pure and exquisitely beautiful face now a snow white, like a little quail, buried her head in Yi Zhaya's chest, clinging tightly. Clearly also frightened, Ling Ying cried loudly. This was even more terrifying than seeing a ghost. HMPH, let you all make fun of me. Li Kun coldly snorted, stepping out of the birthing room, grabbing Ling Ying with one hand and making her disappear. This was his Ling Ying, and he had very little control over her. You little bastard. The supreme elder of Taijuan's face turned pale, truly wanting to slap this guy to death. The others' expressions were also grim. This guy was just joking, nothing to worry about. Yi Xiao patted Feng Queer's butt, which was as elastic as jelly. HMPH, I'm not afraid. Feng Queer lifted her small face, as if tinged with a rosy hue, muttering to herself. Looking closely at Yi Xiaoya's face, Feng Queer was stunned and instinctively bit his lip. Hey, I'm still a child. What do you want to do? Yi Xiaoya's face twitched, and he quickly stopped. Who cares? Feng Queer's little ears instantly turned bright red, a mixture of embarrassment and anger, her heart racing like a frightened deer. I don't know what I am. Yi Xiao saw Feng Queer get off him, wiping away cold sweat. Damn it. He had suppressed this yin-yang Dao body anomaly, but he didn't expect it could still affect women. It was too illogical. He was a little worried. As his cultivation grew stronger, this anomaly would only become harder to suppress. By then, even a female saint might not be able to resist the temptation. As time passed, each disciple produced a spirit infant, and their large bellies also shrank. This divine ability is truly extremely sinister. The Taijuan Saint Lord sighed repeatedly, a lump in his throat, unsure whether to vomit or not. Saint Lord, Little Whirlwind requests an audience. A middle-aged man hurried in from outside, going to the Taijuan Saint Lord. Little Whirlwind, Ziguosheng, junior brother Z has returned. Wu Yan was slightly startled. Suddenly overjoyed, he realized that this junior disciple, who had gone on a training expedition with the Taijuan Saint Sun Titong a few years ago, had been relentlessly pursued by the Yin-Yang sect disciples. He had disappeared without a trace a few days ago. His return meant Titong had also returned. No, only he is here, to report news. The middle-aged man shook his head. I'm afraid something has happened to Titong. The Taijuan Saint Lord's face darkened as he turned and flicked his sleeve. A moment later, he arrived at the main hall with Wu Yan, Li Kun, and other young men. Inside, a young man in a blue robe, covered in blood, stood there. He had sharp eyebrows and bright eyes, strikingly handsome. This was Ziguosheng, possessing the Wine Tao body. Among the disciples, his speed was unparalleled, earning him the nicknames Little Whirlwind, Fast Runner, and Master of Escape. In terms of escape, Titong could only stand behind him. Holy Master, Senior Brother T is trapped in the ancient cave. Please rescue him quickly. Otherwise, in a few days we'll only be able to collect his corpse. Ziguosheng's eyes were bloodshot, his voice trembling. So many days without news. Was it because he was hiding in the ancient cave? Now those little devils from the Yin-Yang sect have found him. Yi Xiao narrowed his eyes, instantly understanding. He wasn't surprised. The Yin-Yang sect had been searching for T-Town for so many days, and the latter was lucky to have survived. Yes. Ziguosheng smiled bitterly. The ancient cave's formation concealed our tracks, but at the same time trapped us. Only when the Yin-Yang sect found us and broke the formation did I manage to escape. Many people from the Yin-Yang sect have arrived. They are, in order, Kaji, Liu Zhen, Wu Ming, Zun Mili, Liu Xiu, Zhou Wang, Zhang Agu, Zhang Sanba, Wang 49, Zhao Wuxiven, Shan Zhang, Han Ling, Liai Min, and Shanhe. Where did you get the names of the dishes you're reporting? Yi Xiao hastily interrupted. Please order the Holy Land to send reinforcements, Ziguosheng said, clasping his hands. The main hall fell silent. Whether it was the Supreme Elder or the young disciples, their faces were gloomy. T-Tong, as the previous Holy Son, still had very high prestige. This is outrageous. Holy Lord, please give the order. We will kill them back. Wu Yan turned his head back to his body and said angrily, Xiao, what do you think? The Taishuan Holy Lord frowned, looking at Yi Xiao. Although these disciples had cultivated over 20 heaven-level divine techniques, he didn't know exactly how powerful they were. Only Yi Xiao knew. After cultivating for so many days, it's time to set off. Annihilate all the Yin-Yang sect disciples, not a single one left alive. Yi Xiao narrowed his eyes and said slowly, Holy Lord, this. Ziguosheng hesitated, looking at the Holy Lord with slightly clasped hands. He had been trapped in the ancient cave and had just returned, completely unaware of what was happening in the outside world. Listen to him, the Holy Lord waved his hand. Ziguosheng was slightly surprised, carefully observing Yi Xiao. He truly hadn't expected that the young master now had such a powerful voice in the Holy Land. You all prepare yourselves. We'll set off tomorrow divided into 3 teams, led by Li Kun, Wu Yan, and Zhou Bing, to counterhunt and kill the Yin-Yang sect disciples. Ziguosheng, you take some disciples and go rescue T-Tong. The Holy Lord ordered, his eyes piercing through the main hall's gate, looking into the distance, revealing a coldness. The Yin-Yang sect has been arrogant for so long. They should pay a heavy price. Yes. The group obeyed without objection. In terms of combat power, Li Kun and the other 2 are all top-tier figures. They all have records of hunting and killing demonic cultivators at the Dao integration realm, and they've killed quite a few. Plus, now that they've cultivated several minor divine abilities, their combat power is even stronger. Wait, you still need some equipment. Before the group left, Yi Xiao slowly said, Little group, with your divine abilities, our combat power is already formidable enough, and we also have spiritual treasures. Li Kun smiled. They were all talented young men from the Taishuan Holy Land, backed by the Holy Land, so they lacked neither defensive nor offensive treasures. These are spiritual treasures I commissioned Senior Fire to forge, called Blue Fire Gatling. Yi Xiao waved his hand, and 100 pitch-black Gatling guns appeared on the ground. Spiritual treasures? What kind of spiritual treasures are these? Ta Quoc-Sin was astonished, grabbing a Gatling gun and brandishing it using his true essence. Unfortunately, it didn't produce any miraculous effects. The others, curious, also took a look, but couldn't understand it at all. This thing isn't even as good as my sword. That shouldn't be the case. How can the things made by the group be so weak? The crowd was surprised, and the Taishuan Holy Lord also frowned. He couldn't understand it either. I'll only demonstrate once. Yi Xiao took a Gatling gun and pulled out a series of bullets. He loaded them and aimed at the sturdy jade pillar of the Grand Hall. The material was extraordinary, capable of withstanding a heavenly human's attack without any problem. Bang, bang, bang. In an instant, sparks flew and gunshots rang out. The sturdy jade pearl was instantly riddled with holes. Holy cow, is this a spiritual treasure? This destructive power is too astonishing. In an instant, the surroundings were shaken. Whether it was the Supreme Elder or Li Kun and the other young men, they were all wide-eyed and speechless. They stared intently at the countless holes on the jade pillar, their scalps tingling. This speed, this power. I was caught off guard, and I would have been riddled with holes. A spiritual treasure among divine artifacts. What kind of broken sword is this? It's all rubbish. Wu Yan swallowed hard, his eyes turning pale. Without a word, he immediately clutched the heavy machine gun in his arms, afraid of being snatched away. Did you make this? The Taijuan Holy Lord's eyelids twitched, overjoyed beyond measure. He was even more thrilled than Yi Xiao creating over 20 heaven-level divine techniques. This kind of powerful spiritual treasure was far more terrifying than mere divine techniques in terms of destructive power, and it didn't even require cultivation. Knowing how to use it was enough. Just make the refining blueprints, Yi Xiao said with a faint smile. My God, he can even make refining blueprints? The crowd was shocked. This was truly a different field. The young master was indeed becoming more and more monstrous. Good, then striking the yin-yang sect will be foolproof. Xiaoyao painstakingly crafted this for you. You absolutely cannot lose this spiritual treasure. If it were thoroughly studied by the yin-yang sect's terrifying grandmother, it would be a disaster for you. The Taijuan Holy Lord laughed heartily, then solemnly warned. Beside him, Yi Xiaoyao's mouth twitched. The hardships were nothing compared to the immense suffering of the fire child. With 100 Gatling guns, who knows how many bombardments he endured? Yes, the Taijuan young disciples were all excited, bowing to Yi Xiao, their eyes glistening with tears, expressing their heartfelt gratitude and respect. Their young master had gone to great lengths for them, without expecting anything in return. Such kindness was impossible to repay. Young master, if you have any orders, I, Li Kun, will brave the flames. I won't refuse. Li Kun's heart warmed, his eyes reddened, and his voice trembled. These young disciples, having experienced countless betrayals and deceptions across the continents, understood even more how well the young master treated them. This kindness was precious, surpassing anything in the world. All right, we only hope that fewer people die in the Taijuan sacred land. If there are any difficulties, have Ziguoxing relay the message to me. He's quick. Yi Xiao waved his hand. His current goal was to eliminate all the yin-yang sect disciples. After that, he would leave the Taijuan Holy Land, gather the remnants of the dead Taijuan disciples' souls, and guide them into the ghost Dao. This was another way to survive. One day, he would become a ghost emperor, reversing the boundaries of life and death, and giving people hope again. At the same time, he also wanted to acquire the essence of those demonic physics. Yes, Ziguoxing took a deep breath and bowed. Only now did he understand why the young master had such great influence in the Taijuan Holy Land. Even if the young master wanted to rebel, these disciples would follow him without hesitation. Go? Yi Xiao nodded. Yes. The young men bowed and retreated. As they left, they vied for the Gatling gun. There are only 100 of these divine weapons, and there are at least 500 or 600 people here. Junior brother, this divine weapon is too powerful. You can't handle it. Let me hold it for you. Senior brother, this Gatling gun is easily damaged. You're too old and your legs aren't very strong. I'm afraid it might injure you. Let me use it. I'm only 28. Seeing this, Yi Xiao didn't linger. He greeted the Holy Lord and returned to the small building. Upon reaching the courtyard, he saw the young monk squatting under a tree, holding a small twig and drawing circles on the ground. He seemed to be suffering from some kind of blow. He didn't care and went into the small building to continue studying the cultivation techniques and scriptures of the Heavenly Master Holy Land. At the same time, he prepared all the necessary items, ready to descend the mountain at any time to harvest the essence of his physique. Those young disciples of the yin-yang sect, although Tao body level is rare, there's no shortage of spiritual bodies and king bodies. After this harvest, I wonder what level my true essence will reach. Yi Xiao looked forward to it. The terrifying power of the Chaos Immortal Demon technique has yet to be fully revealed. The more he devours the essence of his physique, the more it will manifest. If he can completely evolve it into Chaos True Essence, no one in the heavenly human realm will be able to withstand a battle with him. Even those in the Dao integration realm would die. The next day, as dawn broke, hundreds of figures emerged from various parts of the Taijuan Holy Land, transforming into various animals, birds, and beasts, dividing into teams. They walked silently towards the border between Linzhou and Yangzhou. They had all cultivated the painted skin disguise technique, concealing their whereabouts and abilities. They were unmatched. Several hundred miles outside the Taijuan Holy Land, there was a small village. Beside the village, in the fields, A dozen or so figures clad in coarse cloth were busily weeding with hoes. There were old men, middle-aged men, young men, and women with headscarves picking peanuts in the fields. I say, we shouldn't go to such lengths, should we? To avoid being discovered by the Taijuan Holy Land, shouldn't we disguise ourselves as farmers? Wouldn't it be better to disguise ourselves as wealthy merchants? A dark-skinned young man sat down on the ground, exhausted, breathing heavily. He had concealed his aura, his physical body and cultivation temporarily sealed. Unable to use anything, the hoeing was truly exhausting. From Yue pondered for a long time, unable to understand. He, a powerful expert of the yin-yang sex heavenly human realm, shouldn't he be lying in some girl's arms enjoying seafood? And now he's digging. Just like his mother, Nima, a wealthy merchant, this godforsaken place doesn't even have a fortress. You're disguising yourself as a wealthy merchant. Isn't that clearly telling the Taijuan Holy Land that I'm mentally deficient and they should hurry up and capture me? Another young man was sweating profusely, his hoe almost smoking from the force of his swings. His name was Wu Wentu, a cultivator in the early stages of the Dao integration realm, most skilled at concealing his whereabouts, and even more skilled at escaping. That's Guo Sheng, that rascal, tipped the report. Are we just going to wait for them to send reinforcements? What if they don't? A seductive girl said, I know the Taijuan Holy Land well. They won't fail to come. The seductive girl snorted coldly, threw down her hoe, and couldn't help but say, hooking is too boring. Who wants to have a wild battle with me? As female disciples of the yin-yang sect, being ready to fight anytime, anywhere was their admirable quality. I'm coming, I'm coming. Su Yu's spirits immediately lifted, and he rushed forward. Come on, you beast. The alluring girl immediately lay down, revealing her fair, long legs. Su Yue quickly took off his pants and pounced. Seeing this, the young men were speechless. Spring has arrived, and the mating season has come again. Wu Wenta looked towards the rising sun in the east and sighed. This hunting trip to kill the leading Taijuan disciple had exhausted him like a dog digging a hole. This was simply too much. Be careful, this is the Taijuan disciples' way of rescuing the T-Tong area. They need to pass through here. Everyone stay alert, ambush the Taijuan disciples to avoid any escapees. Wu Wentu's face darkened, his eyes filled with malice. If it were somewhere else, he wouldn't care. They were just Taijuan disciples, killing them like chickens. But this place was only a few hundred miles from the Taijuan Holy Land. Too close. It would be easy for the Taijuan high-ranking officials to notice. Don't worry, these Taijuan disciples are like roasted chickens. I can kill them all while holding a woman. Su Yue took off his clothes and said disdainfully. These damn Taijuan disciples were crying and wailing, but there were only a few strong ones among them. His repeated victories had made him arrogant, and he didn't take the Taijuan disciples seriously at all. That's right, we mainly need to be wary of those senior cultivators in the Taijuan Holy Land's Dao integration and Dao severing realms. It's not a big problem. The seductive woman didn't care either. She took off her peasant's coarse cloth dress, revealing a silk undergarment. All right, you guys need to work a little faster. Wu Wendao frowned, too lazy to ask many questions, and couldn't help but wave his sleeve. This woman had a thick back, not easy to provoke. Humph. I bet he only has 3 seconds. 3 seconds. Even 1 second is nothing. The others saw this and rushed over to watch, pointing and whispering. This kind of thing, for other sects, would be too damaging to their morals, inevitably embarrassing. But for the yin-yang sect, what was this? They tried it everywhere, in the sky and on the earth, in the sea and in the river. It had long become normal. I'm also getting hot. I can't stand it. I have to go to the village and grab a few widows to play with. A young man, impatient and eager, was about to head to the village. The seductive woman lying on the grass let out a scream. Su Yue was about to unleash his divine power. Suddenly, he saw a human head emerge from the ground beside the seductive woman. This sudden turn of events shocked him so much that he almost collapsed. It was like watching a movie and suddenly encountering a beautiful woman. No matter how strong his heart was, it couldn't handle it. Oh my God! What's going on? It's already this exciting. Wu Yan looked at the man and woman in front of him, about to engage in a 300-round battle, feeling a little dizzy. He had just used his earth, and When he emerged, he encountered this kind of thing. He really didn't know there were demonic cultivators here. It was truly a coincidence. Sorry, you to continue. Wuyan smiled awkwardly, glancing around at the familiar-looking demonic cultivators, his whole body trembling. So many of them, even the strongest, would be beaten to death. Wuyan. The seductive woman's face changed dramatically, and in an instant, she reacted, her jade hand like a blade, fiercely striking towards Wuyan's head. Oof, little Kui, you still want to kill me. Wuyan, his head revealing snow-white teeth, leapt directly to break through the seductive woman's protective barrier, biting her chest. Wuyan. The seductive woman screamed in pain. Boom! Dazzling light, blinding black light, several young men with fierce eyes attacked simultaneously. But Wuyan, as the leader of the Taijuan Holy Land, was not just for show. After biting, he burrowed underground, instantly escaping. Only a smoke-filled pit remained. Taijuan disciples are coming. Kill them all. Don't let a single one escape. Hurry. Wu Wenta drew out a long sword, his eyes icy cold, scanning the surroundings. His aura was no longer suppressed. His cultivation level was like a wolf's breath, surging upwards. We've waited so long, and finally they've arrived. It wasn't in vain that I spent half a day tilling the fields here. The 10 demonic cultivators all bared their teeth in cruel grins. They didn't want to stay in this cursed place for even a moment, their eyes widened in astonishment. They saw, hundreds of feet away, a group of large, sparrow-like creatures flapping their wings and scurrying forward with long, bird-like strides. It looked incredibly bizarre. Just now, it seemed like only Wuyan's had appeared. What kind of divine ability is this? Suyue pulled up his trousers, suppressing his anger, his eyes showing surprise and doubt. As a demonic cultivator, no one was stupid. No matter how arrogant he was, he could immediately sense something was amiss. He had never heard of a single head attacking someone, at least not at the Dao integration realm level. I don't know. These birds are dead, clearly they've transformed. I've never heard of Taijuan possessing such a miraculous transformation technique before. Wu Wenta also reacted, frowning. An inexplicable unease arose in his heart. However, he ultimately suppressed it. He had too many dealings with Taijuan disciples, and even if it wasn't appropriate, it wouldn't cause any trouble. Luckily my head is tough. Otherwise, with that one just now, my head would have been blown off. Wuyan's severed head jumped out of the ground, landing perfectly on the head of a headless sparrow. The sparrow shook its head, showing a look of relief. More than anything, it showed admiration. The young master's divine fruit technique was incredibly powerful and abnormal. This was his first time using the head-cutting demon-slaying technique in real combat. The head's defensive power was extraordinarily high. Kill. Kill them all. Leave no one alive. Kill. Wu Wendie's eyes were fierce and ruthless. In an instant, he attacked, his black hair swirling, his body like a giant python, swinging his long sword and suddenly slashing towards Wuyan. The remaining members of the Yin-Yang sect also unleashed their divine abilities, wielding swords, maces, and other weapons. Demonic energy surged, like a dark cloud, stirring up the heavens and earth. Their eyes were cold, their roars shaking the heavens, and they all charged forward. Kill them all. Wuyan gestured with his bird-like hand. Crack! Crack! Beside him, 10 large sparrows flapped their wings, extending their arms from beneath, simultaneously pulling at their blue flame Gatling guns. They cocked their barrels, aiming at the group of demonic cultivators. The barrels rotated, and blue flames began to erupt. What kind of weapons are these? Suyue was slightly startled, looking at the dozen or so black muzzles of the guns, somewhat bewildered. No matter what they are, let's slaughter these bird-like creatures first. A young man revealed a grin, as if he had already envisioned the exhilarating scene of killing these Taijuan disciples and devouring their flesh and blood essence. Although they were Yin-Yang sect cultivators, primarily practicing dual cultivation techniques, they also had several blood sacrifice techniques as auxiliary cultivation methods. The stronger the opponent, the more solid their foundation, the stronger the effect of the blood sacrifice. In their eyes, Taijuan disciples were no different from rare delicacies. But a second later, bang, bang, bang. Unleashing full firepower, a barrage of bullets directly engulfed all the Yin-Yang sect disciples. Screams of agony erupted like thunder. Fresh blood, shattered bones, splattered everywhere, staining the earth. What is this? Suyue reacted the fastest, immediately pulling out a blood-colored shield to block the dense fire. Clang, 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 the shield was like being struck by countless meteor showers, shaking his arm and making his internal organs churn. He glanced out of the corner of his eye. His scalp instantly exploded. The fellow disciples who had just been shouting to slaughter these bird-like creatures were also at the heavenly human realm, but now their skulls were blown apart, and they didn't even have a chance to pull out their defensive spirit treasures. Their entire bodies were riddled with holes. They perished on the spot. Damn it! Does it have to be this abnormal? From Yu's eyelids twitched wildly, terrified to the point of despair. A fellow of the same realm as him, he didn't even have the ability to resist. He was instantly killed. Looking around, he saw over 40 fellow disciples, most of them in the heavenly human realm, half of whom had already been wiped out. The other half, like him, had pulled out various defensive spirit treasures, barely holding their ground. Only Wu Wentu and a few others in the Dao integration realm were furious, bringing out their spirit treasures to confront the overwhelming firepower and charging forward. What kind of spirit treasure is that? Not only is it possible, how can the spirit treasures of the Taijuan Holy Land be so powerful? All the demonic cultivators were shaken, their original contempt instantly crushed by the bloody reality. They simply couldn't understand and dared not believe that the Taijuan Holy Land's powerful weapons were somewhat bizarre. I don't believe it. This must be an illusion. A young man at the peak of the heavenly human realm couldn't bear it. This ambush was originally a one-sided situation. They should have crushed the Taijuan disciples after killing them. They left, but now it was completely reversed. How could he possibly endure it? Black Heaven demonic palm, kill! The young man roared, suddenly leaping out from behind the shield, condensing 100-foot-long demonic palm, and charging towards the birdman opposite him. But just as he jumped out, Dun's firepower surged up, instantly shattering his protective shield. He couldn't even fully unleash his divine abilities before being riddled with holes, dying a gruesome death on the spot, his entire body covered in over 10,000 bullet wounds. Seeing this, Suyue, on the side, was overcome with sheer terror. Each of these attacks is equivalent to a single strike from a heavenly human realm expert. So many attacks. It's more than 1,000 heavenly human realm experts attacking simultaneously. All the heavenly human realm demonic cultivators were terrified. In the face of this dense firepower, their proud divine abilities and demonic techniques couldn't withstand a single blow. For the first time, I felt like a stinking ant. Even facing a Dao-slaying realm expert, I didn't feel this helpless. My lord, times have changed. Wu Yan laughed heartily, extremely pleased. It's no wonder this weapon was created by the group. It's incredibly powerful. The only drawback is that the ammunition runs out too quickly. Don't get too cocky too soon. Wu Wentu's expression was grim, revealing overwhelming killing intent. He held his shield, his figure constantly teleporting forward. Each step covered dozens of meters. The seductive women and several Dao integrating realm experts also had ferocious expressions, teleporting forward one after another. Lian, do you really think you can turn the tables just by relying on this spiritual treasure? As long as you get close, you'll all die. A young man in a black robe roared, continuously teleporting. At their level, their bodies merged with the heavens and earth, allowing them to teleport. This is the terrifying power of the Dao integration realm. Retreat! Aman fire! Seeing this, Wu Yan's eyes narrowed, and he roared the order. The 10 birdmen beside him retreated, wielding Gatling guns and surging fire snakes, unleashing a deadly bombardment on Wu Wentu and his group. Wu Wentu and the seductive woman, shielding themselves, were pushed back several meters as soon as they teleported. They could have been close in a few breaths, but this dense firepower forced them back. Whose despicable weapon is this? It's illogical. It's illogical. Damn it. No matter what, I must kill these Taijuan disciples. I swear. The young man in the black robe roared. The reclusive man felt like he was going to vomit blood. His cultivation had long since reached the Dao integration stage, making him incredibly powerful. With a wave of his hand, he could shatter Mount Hua with immense force truly. His strength was boundless. His divine abilities, such as the hand-severing technique, were layered upon layer. But now, except for teleportation, he couldn't use anything. It was frustrating, utterly frustrating. Take these weapons. These are treasures among divine artifacts, absolutely cannot be missed. If we can retrieve them from the Yin-Yang sect, it will be enough to shock the high-ranking officials. A great achievement. Wu Wentu's greedy expression reappeared. He didn't care about the others' lives or deaths. As long as he could completely annihilate these Taijuan disciples, everything would be worth it. Suddenly, the gunfire abruptly ceased, and the wind and waves calmed down in an instant. Can't hold on. Wu Wentu was overjoyed, hastily peeking his head out from under the shield. Then his expression froze. The others were also stunned. 100 yards away, two figures were seen carrying a large double-horn bow. A third person pulled the bowstring. Not an arrow was attached to the bowstring, but Wu Yan, that bird-like creature. At this moment, Wu Yan held a long saber in his hand, his eyes gleaming as he stared intently at the young man in the black robe. Shoot! Wu Yan, with the bowstring pulled taut, shouted loudly and swung his great saber. Swoosh! The bowstring was released, and Wu Yan, like lightning, shot out directly towards the young man in the black robe. Wu Yan! Die for me! The young man in the black robe was overjoyed, unleashing his spear technique, suddenly thrusting it towards Wu Yan's head. Demonic energy surged, the spear striking like a dragon. He believed that with his supreme spear technique, he could pierce Wu Yan's head and tear his flesh apart. Clang! The head and the spearhead collided in an instant, the shockwave sweeping in all directions. A tremendous force exploded, and Wu Yan's head directly shattered the spear. His momentum didn't diminish, and his head violently slammed into the chest of the black-robed youth. Crack! Crack! The black-robed youth's ribcage shuddered, caved in, his face turned red, and he spat out blood. How is this possible? What kind of head is this? The black-robed youth was terrified, feeling as if his internal organs were shattered. He couldn't believe that his spiritual treasure had been destroyed by a head. Was this a human head? Little ancestor's head-slaying demon-slaying technique. Wu Yan laughed wildly, suddenly charging forward with his great saber. Little ancestor? A divine ability created by Yi Xiaoyao. The black-robed youth's expression suddenly changed. Suddenly, a barrier was erected to block it. He could hardly believe that this bizarre and unconventional divine ability was created by that guy. But a second later, his whole body trembled violently, his face showing disbelief and horror. It was as if he had seen a ghost. Once the ghost blade is opened, you can't see anything. Move away, move away. Wu Yan wielded his saber and moved with bizarre footwork. With each step, his figure would vanish from the black-robed youth's sight, only to reappear. It was like a ghost in a horror movie, constantly flashing and approaching the female ghost, blinding the black-robed youth. Blood escape. The black-robed youth panicked, without hesitation, spitting out a mouthful of blood. A large amount of fresh blood covered him as he tried to flee. The series of bizarre weapons and divine abilities had shattered his psychological defenses, filling him with unprecedented fear of the Taijuan disciples. These people were completely different from those he had encountered before. Even the demonic sects couldn't compare to their evil. Theft. The next moment, a flash of cold light appeared, and the black-robed youth's head was severed, rolling swiftly to the side. His soul, along with the divine essence within his head, was crushed by the blade's light. Death is impossible to escape. A Dao integration realm cultivator, just like that, died. Wu Yan is strong, but he's not that powerful, is he? The heavenly human realm demon cultivators who were originally about to rush forward to surround and kill Siyue stopped in their tracks, their hair standing on end, their expressions filled with astonishment. Even the strongest would need a moment to kill someone of the same level. How could it be so clean? Moreover, Wu Yan's head was incredibly powerful. Even a spiritual treasure could be broken by it. Die for me. At this moment, a long sword swept across, cutting towards Wu Yan's neck. The crowd looked over and saw that Yuan had already made his move. His eyes were fierce, staring intently at Wu Yan. 1 for 1, it's worth it. Damn it, I don't believe that at such close range, he can still escape. Siyue and the others were overjoyed. Wu Wendai and Wu Yan had fought before, their strength not much different. Now Wu Yan was caught off guard. If not dead, he would be severely injured. but very quickly, their expressions froze. Suddenly, Wu Yan's head jumped up from the neck, separating from his body. The sword light pierced through, falling into empty space. He actually dodged that. Su Yu's scalp tingled, feeling like he'd seen a ghost in broad daylight. He was terrified, horrified. This was the first time he'd felt such terror from a Taijuan disciple. Are you a human or a ghost? Wu Wendi's scalp also tingled. For a normal person, this was simply impossible to dodge. Then, a severed head flew towards him at lightning speed, biting into his head, shattering his skull. Ah! Wu Wenti let out a blood-curdling scream, channeling his cultivation and unleashing his divine abilities, trying to smash the head to pieces. However, no matter what divine ability he used, Wu Yan's head seemed to be permanently attached to his, unyielding and impenetrable. It was incredibly hard, impossible to budge. Damn it! What kind of divine ability has this Wu Yan cultivated? The seductive woman's expression suddenly changed, her face filled with murderous intent as she rushed forward, wanting to join forces with the other Dao Integration Realm cultivators to smash Wu Yan's head to pieces. Clang, clang, clang! The next moment, fiery snakes flew about, and a dozen black gun barrels were aimed at them, providing fire support. For a moment, the few cultivators at the Dao Integration Realm could only hold them back, unable to rescue Wu Wenti first. What do we do now? Run! A demon cultivator at the Dao Integration Realm turned pale, contemplating retreat. This damned attack was pointless. Those people were far more abnormal than expected, especially their weapons. The attack was incredibly powerful. Only powerful divine abilities were available, and even then, any gap would be riddled with firepower. Unless they used a great blood escape technique to get close. But even then, they could only kill one person before being quickly overwhelmed and killed. It was difficult to resolve. The seductive woman hesitated. If they scattered and fled, they would be caught, and she, at the Dao Integration Realm, would be alone and outnumbered. The other side wasn't without powerful cultivators of that level. She was currently considering her options. A mournful, tragic cry rang out, and the leader, Wu Wenti, was completely subdued by Wu Yan. A head, like a mad dog, began biting wildly at Wu Wenti's body. In an instant, Wu Wenti was bitten almost to death. His entire body was torn apart, not a single piece of flesh remaining. Both his thighs were bitten off. Wu Yan, you just wait. A small figure flew out from Wu Wenti's divine palace, roaring venomously. Crack, crack, crack. Before the soul could escape, the fire enveloped it, instantly annihilating Wu Wenti's soul. Wu Wenti dead? The remaining 20-odd demonic cultivators of the yin-yang sect trembled, a chill running from their feet to the back of their necks. Wu Wenti, this guy who was skilled at escaping, hadn't even gotten away. After all, he was a Dao Integration Realm cultivator. With Wu Yan's skull wrapped around them, there's no escaping, only death. This divine ability is no less than the spirit level. Moreover, it's already at the minor completion stage, very close to the major completion stage. Su Yu's lips trembled, finding it hard to believe. Spirit-level divine abilities are the most difficult to cultivate, and reaching the minor completion stage is something no one in their generation of yin-yang sect disciples has ever achieved. Then, a scene unfolded that completely shattered the alluring woman, Siyue, and the other demonic cultivators. From the group of bird-like creatures, several Dao Integration Realm disciples emerged. Then, each of their heads flew off, emitting a strange hee-hee laugh, charging towards them. Several heads flew around like a swarm of flies. Too terrifying. Are these Taijuan disciples human or ghost? The alluring woman exclaimed in shock, no longer hesitating, turning around and transforming into a stream of light to flee into the distance, even employing secret techniques to increase her speed dramatically. Seeing this, the other cultivators in the Dao Integration Realm were terrified, fleeing in all directions like dogs whose owners had died. Not to mention Siyue and the others in the heavenly human realm who were frantically trying to escape. Chase! A group of Taijuan disciples, without hesitation, 10 young men wielding Gatling guns charged towards the fleeing heavenly human realm demonic cultivators, like hunting birds, unleashing a full-scale firepower. One after another, the demonic cultivators fell, dying tragically on the spot. Meanwhile, those with heads as big as flies were chasing the seductive women and the Dao Integration Realm cultivators. Their decapitation demonic cultivation technique, after such a long period of cultivation, had long since reached a high level of mastery. Their defensive and offensive power surpassed that of ordinary spiritual treasures. They were unrivaled within their ranks. In an instant, the entire group of demonic cultivators was wiped out. Only the seductive woman was a bit difficult to deal with. She had some background and possessed a defensive treasure. "Let me go! Let me go! I'll warm your beds." The seductive woman, surrounded by several skulls of the Tao integration realm, screamed in terror. "We are even righteous cultivators, warming your beds. Don't you dare insult us." One skull roared, its voice resolute and imposing. The seductive woman looked at the circle of skulls, her heart filled with hatred. Is this what they call righteousness? Do righteous cultivators never die even if their heads are severed? You deserve to die. You deserve to die. Senior Sister Kaji will surely avenge me. The seductive woman cried out venomously, breaking through the encirclement in one direction. This woman is not easy to kill. I can't bite through her armor. One skull frowned. The seductive woman wore golden silk soft armor, a spiritual treasure, with very strong defensive power. Get out of the way. The spirit essence is enough to destroy the room. A Tao integration realm expert stepped forward, pulling out the spirit essence. Seeing this, the crowd's expressions changed drastically, and they hastily retreated. They watched as the alluring woman vanished into thin air. The Tao integration realm expert directly threw the spirit essence out. With a loud bang, the ground shook for miles, smoke and fire billowed, and the alluring woman was instantly obliterated, reduced to rubble. Only a piece of exquisitely crafted, embroidered mandarin duck underwear remained, floating gracefully before a Taijuan disciple. As expected of a female cultivator of the yin-yang sect, this underwear is truly magnificent, a top-tier spiritual treasure. The disciple, wielding his Gatling gun, struck the underwear several times. Seeing that it was completely undamaged, he couldn't help but praise it repeatedly. Trash! What good is being stronger? You can protect the abalone, but you can't protect the head. One disciple snorted coldly, looking at himself shooting and killing several demonic cultivators, feeling incredibly excited. In the past, if he had fought against a heavenly human realm disciple of the yin-yang sect, how could it have been so easy? Even if he killed one, he would have been severely injured. Now, shooting and killing a heavenly human realm cultivator was as easy as taking something from his pocket. All of this was thanks to the weapon created by the group, the Blue Flame Gatling. Ha ha ha. This proves the divine power and the strength of the spiritual treasure. We are completely confident in suppressing the yin-yang sect disciples. The others also laughed heartily, finally feeling proud. We don't need to repay this small group either. Collect the spoils of war, and then hand them all over to the small group, especially the yin-yang sect's cultivation techniques and scriptures. Although there are no mental cultivation methods, giving them to the small group will definitely make them happy. Wu Yun waved his hand, returning to his own thoughts. His confidence had increased considerably. He had fought Wu Yun too many times, and defeating him was extremely difficult. Killing him was even more impossible. Once the opponent activated his blood escape technique, along with the aphrodisiac, he couldn't even catch up. Now, thanks to the small group's divine ability, decapitation demon slaying technique, he could so easily kill Wu Wen too. The more he fought, the more he understood how incredibly powerful the small group truly was. Brother Wu is right. Hey, retrieve that top-tier underwear, and we'll hand it all over to the small group later. Quickly clean up the battlefield. Rescue Brother T Tong. A group of people, their spirits greatly boosted, dared not delay and immediately began to clean up the battlefield. These people, being disciples of the yin-yang sect, naturally possessed no shortage of treasures. Adding to that, the amount of money was enough to tempt even a Dao-slaying king. After cleaning up and burying the corpses, the group quickly transformed into various flying beasts and set off towards the yin-yang sect's Engzhou Earth realm. Don't underestimate them. This is just a small victory. The real enemy is on senior brother T Tong's side. Along the way, Wu Yun cautioned, his expression serious. Killing these people was just an appetizer. The true top elites of the yin-yang sect wouldn't be so easy to kill. Even with their powerful divine abilities and spiritual treasures, they would still have to endure a difficult battle, Engzhou and the Linzhou border. This is a small section of mountain range with jagged rocks and dense forests. The various demonic beasts were now far away, trembling in the distance, not daring to approach. One after another, powerful figures sat cross-legged on the mountainside, numbering over 100. Leading them was the young prodigy of the yin-yang sect, the madman Duan Muyan. In front of him, an ancient cave mansion appeared, covered by a layer of formation. Is this the final layer of the protective formation? Beside him, a man in gray couldn't help but look at the young man analyzing the formation. That young man analyzing the formation was the yin-yang sect's formation master, Late Summer. He possessed exceptional talent in the art of formations and was once hailed as a once-in-a-thousand-years formation genius. It is the final layer, but Titang, who holds the Cave Mansion Master's token, controls the final layer of the formation, making it relatively difficult to break. Late Summer frowned. The first 10 positions in the formation were uncontrolled, which was easy to handle, but this final layer was already under Titang's control, like a black turtle's shell. Take your time, no rush. It's best to break through in 10 or 15 days. Duan Muyan's sickly face showed no expression. His eyes were profound, and his whole being gave off a cold, restrained feeling. In terms of individual combat power, no one here was stronger than him. The crowd was slightly startled. Then they heard Duan Muyan continue, I'm interested in Titang, and I'm also interested in the other top geniuses of the Taijuan Holy Land. Using Titang as bait, I'll lure the other top geniuses of Taijuan here, such as Zhou Bing and those guys. Duan Muyan's face showed a sinister smile. If one comes, I'll kill one. If to come, I'll kill a pair. Using their blood as a stepping stone, I'll break through to the late stage of the Dao integration realm. Senior brother Duan Mu still has foresight. The others were shaken, chiming in, their eyes shining brightly. If they could wipe out the geniuses of this generation from the Taijuan Holy Land, it would definitely be a great achievement. Just then, Late Summer frowned, took out a sound transmission talisman, and after a moment, his expression changed. News from the branch office says Zikui, Wu Wentu, and a few others are dead. Hearing this, everyone's eyes tightened slightly. Although Wu Wentu wasn't too strong, his escape skills were unmatched. The person who could kill him. In this generation of Taijuan, there aren't many. The newly appointed Holy Sun Zhangbar's expression was uncertain. It must have been Zhou Bing and the others working together. I'm even more looking forward to it. Duan Muyan smiled again. A longing was evident in his eyes. Wu Wenda and his group were immortal. He was too lazy to care about them. He only cared about people's strength. Only the strong were worthy of his killing. The stronger, the better. I'm afraid of capsizing in the ditch. Zhang Bani felt inexplicably uneasy. He always felt something was off. Capturing the boat? Those insignificant little tunnels of Taijuan, do you think they can overturn my boat? Duan Muyan sneered. He had encountered countless opponents along the way, never suffering a defeat, and had long since cultivated immense self-confidence. Seeing this, the others felt reassured. Looking at Kaji lying on her back on a large tree in the distance, they felt even more at ease. Even if a Dao-slaying king were to arrive, Duan Muyan couldn't defeat him. Kaji could still subdue him. It wasn't a big problem. Meanwhile, in the Taijuan Holy Land, inside a small building, Yi Xiaoyao sat cross-legged on a cushion, suddenly opening his eyes. He seemed to sense something, frowned, and casually tossed 3 coins onto the floor. A normal outcome. Yi Xiaoyao's eyebrows furrowed even tighter, feeling somewhat strange. Logically, this trip for the Taijuan disciples should either bring great misfortune or great fortune. What did this half-hearted attempt mean a draw? How could this be? Yi Xiaoyao threw the 2 sides aside, still maintaining the same ordinary appearance. Within it, a hint of ferocity was subtly revealed. So that's it. Yi Xiaoyao was startled. After thinking for a moment, he smiled calmly. I have to leave sooner or later, so I'll go down the mountain first and harvest some of the original physical essence. Initially, Yi Xiaoyao planned to go to Titang's place after some time, and he would harvest the original physical essence of those deceased demonic cultivators afterward. Now it seems he's going ahead of schedule. 3 hours later. 10 miles outside the Heavenly Master Holy Land, a black donkey trod on the dirt road, carrying a young man westward. A young monk followed beside him. Little monk, do you want a wife? That courtesan from the Yin-Yang sect is quite good. You've just cultivated the golden body. You'll definitely be able to fight her for 300 rounds. Ishaya yawned, glancing at the young monk beside him who was reading scriptures, intending to brainwash him. Regarding the young monk, he had heard that he went to see Chen Nangshuan, only to be enthusiastically invited into a tomb and coffin, spending the entire night there. After returning, the young monk was completely dejected. Little monk doesn't need it. The young monk, with his handsome face, was extremely flustered, his head shaking like a rattling drum. The world is a vast sea of suffering, and all beings are in the process of salvation. If you don't experience this turbulent world, cross this great sea of suffering, how can you reach the other shore and see the true Buddha? Without experiencing female temptation, how can one attain enlightenment? Yi Xiao said calmly. The young monk fell into deep thought, unable to refute. This point was true. Buddhism truly had a worldly aspect to it, a path of asceticism, experiencing many temptations, suffering on behalf of all beings, and seeing the true Buddha. This humble monk accepts your teachings. The young monk clasped his hands together, feeling that Yi Xiao was right. I will teach you a Buddhist Dharma, the great mighty heavenly dragon, which can help you cultivate a Buddha heart. You need a female attendant to help you cultivate. If you can withstand temptations, you will surely achieve great enlightenment. This Buddhist teaching, I don't teach it to ordinary people. If others cross the sea of suffering, they're riding in small boats. If you learn this method, it's like riding an aircraft carrier straight to the other shore in one go. Yi Xiao said with a smile, now I ask you again, do you want a wife or not? Buddhism. Is Benefactor Yi truly the reincarnation of Shakyamuni Buddha, the one who actually created Buddhism? The young monk was both overjoyed and terrified, his eyes welling up with tears. Having had eyes, he had followed Yi Xiao, reciting so many scriptures, and finally, it was showing some effect. Benefactor Yi had created Buddhism, clearly indicating he had a heart inclined towards it. Amitabha Buddha, this humble monk is willing to cultivate Benefactor Yi's Buddhist teachings. The young monk clasped his hands together, his voice choked with emotion, tears of gratitude welling up in his eyes. He believed Benefactor Yi was right, using female beauty to temper his will and spirit would surely lead to great enlightenment. Excellent! Yi Xiao smiled, then imparted the great mighty heavenly dragon to the young monk. The young monk studied it carefully, and when he realized he needed demons to assist him in his cultivation, he pondered deeply for a moment, then suddenly understood. Tears of emotion streaming down his face. Then, facing Yi Xiao, he clasped his hands together in front of his chest. Thank you, you benefactor. You benefactor intentionally tempered this humble monk, and this humble monk is grateful. Whether it was demons or seeing demons, his emotions could easily get out of control. He thought this was all you benefactor tempering him. He was deeply moved. Originally, I thought you benefactor was creating evil techniques, vaguely taking the wrong path. Now it seems that this humble monk was petty and utterly ashamed. This is clearly you benefactor's painstaking effort to temper those Taijuan disciples. The young monk's handsome face showed embarrassment, and he repeatedly chanted Buddhist mantras. No, it has nothing to do with me. It's clearly you who are the enemy. Yi Xiao smiled, then nodded, indicating his acceptance. After a long while, they entered a desolate field outside a village. Yi Xiao sensed something and dug up a pile of Yin-Yang sect disciples' corpses. Are these Yin-Yang sect demonic cultivators? You benefactor, digging up graves is probably not a good idea. The young monk hastily advised, then began to brainwash Yi Xiao, chanting Buddhist scriptures. He suspected Yi Xiao was once again taking a different path. I am here to purify their souls, to help them attain rebirth in the Pure Land. Yi Xiao smiled. The young monk was stunned, falling into deep thought. Then his eyes showed admiration. I will join you benefactor and purify them. After saying this, he closed his eyes and seriously recited the Sutra of Infinite Life. His body began to glow. This was the scripture for purification. It was fitting. Yi Xiao, meanwhile, began frantically channeling his innate physical essence. Out of 45 people, the vast majority were spirit bodies, nearly half were king bodies, and not a single Tao body was encountered. This left him somewhat disappointed. However, he quickly composed himself. He believed that the elite demonic cultivators on T-Town's side definitely had extraordinary physics. At that time, it was uncertain whether it would be a great harvest, and his cultivation might even improve. Gathering small gains makes a big difference. Yi Xiao extracted a large amount of essence and integrated it into himself. This kind of essence was invisible to ordinary people, let alone extracting it. And he wasn't afraid of the little monk noticing. The moment he integrated it into himself, his nascent soul in his Ganshin became even more refined, and the amount of true essence increased by about 5%. At the same time, the amount of chaotic energy within his body increased slightly. The feeling of constantly getting stronger is truly wonderful. Yi Xiao revealed a satisfied expression. Just as the little monk's soul-transcending ritual was complete, tiny specks of starlight dispersed from the corpse, disappearing into the heavens and earth. This caused Yi Xiao to close his eyes, somewhat astonished. It must be said, this Buddhist scripture on soul-transcending rituals is truly miraculous. Let's continue. Yi Xiao mounted the little donkey and continued forward, simultaneously sensing the location of Zhou Bing, Li Kun, and the others. Zhou Bing and Li Kun were currently leading Taijuan disciples, hunting down the yin-yang sect's scattered demonic cultivators in the surrounding areas of Linzhou. Suyan, we've been searching for you for so long, and finally found you. Now you want to run away. In a swampy area of Linzhou, four black-robed demonic cultivators grinned menacingly, wielding tridents, chasing a young woman. This woman was none other than the Taijuan Holy Land's previous prodigy. Her posture was graceful, her face beautiful. She exuded a gentle aura, like a refined young lady from a noble family. Getting closer and closer to our Taijuan Holy Land, aren't you afraid of being chased and returning dead? Su Yun's face turned pale, his teeth clenched. He had been pursued for 3 days and 3 nights, and was on his last legs. Haha, as long as it's not a Dao-slaying king, who can stop us? A black-robed demonic cultivator laughed loudly, his eyes gleaming with lust. In such a large yin-yang sect, they couldn't find a single promising young woman. They had finally encountered one. And they absolutely couldn't let her go. A woman's yin energy was fatally attractive to the disciples of the yin-yang sect, especially a prodigy with such yin energy. Don't run. Our yin-yang sect's dual cultivation path is enough to send you to heaven. How about joining our yin-yang sect? After all, your Taijuan cultivation hasn't progressed much. It's clear you're on the verge of decline. One of the black-robed demonic cultivators chuckled sinisterly, licking his lips. Dream on. As the distance narrowed, Su Yun showed a look of despair. Finally, his eyes resolute, and he slashed his long sword toward his own neck. Without hesitation, he was extremely decisive. You dare. The 4 black-robed demonic cultivators were furious. If he died, what would dual cultivation be? Clang! An arrow shot out from the bushes, knocking Siyun's long sword to the ground. Which senior brother is here? This is the woman we covet. Seeing this, the 4 demonic cultivators all frowned. They looked around. Clang, clang, clang! Answering them were a series of fire snakes and a shimmering white figure. Boom! In an instant, the 4 demonic cultivators vanished, their bodies blown in two. Senior brother! Su-Yun gasped, tears of joy streaming down her face, because she saw a young man emerge from the bushes, carrying a strange spiritual treasure. That familiar, gentle smile, she concluded it was her senior brother, Chu Bing. Yes, Chu Bing nodded, then his expression suddenly turned ferocious. He charged towards the 4 corpses with his Gatling gun, firing furiously. Fire splattered everywhere, smoke billowing. Damn it! You dare hunt my junior sister! You want to die, you bastards! Chu Bing was furious, his face filled with ferocity. Su Yunru was about to step forward, but suddenly stopped, stunned and speechless, as if unable to believe it. Was this the gentle senior brother? Junior sister, don't go back yet. Come with your senior brother to rescue Titong. Chu Bing restrained his ferocity, turning around with a smile. Su Yunru was now on the verge of death. It wouldn't be safe for her to return alone. Senior brother, your strength. Su Yun regained her composure, hesitating slightly. Senior brother Chu's strength seemed even greater than before. And what kind of weapon was this? She looked at the Gatling gun, somewhat uncertain and surprised. Based on the team's plan, this is a weapon created by the team. Chu Bing chuckled, sizing up the Gatling gun, a little smug. The team. Su Yun was stunned, the image of that little boy Yi Xiao flashing through her mind. Her eyes widened gradually, as if she couldn't believe it. And such a scene. In Lamchou, various events took place. The originally powerful and unparalleled yin-yang sect demonic cultivators suffered a major blow and were completely annihilated. Inside and outside, there were over 1,000 people. The number is quite exaggerated. This kind of glorious achievement is enough to shock many major forces. A few days later, Chu Bing, Wu Yan, Li Kun, Zi Guosheng and others gathered and finally arrived at Ti Tong's residence. Over 1,000 dead, this situation is a bit strange. Late Summer held a sound transmission talisman, his expression uncertain. The remaining 100 or so elite members of the yin-yang sect also exchanged glances. A hint of unease stirring within them. This wasn't just unusual. Not long ago, their yin-yang sect disciples had infiltrated Linzhou, slaughtering Taijuan disciples left a trail of heads. In the blink of an eye, they were all wiped out like stray fish in a river. What exactly happened? Even if all the Taijuan disciples were sent out, it's impossible for them to eliminate our disciples so quickly. Late Summer's face was gloomy. He utterly detested this unknown danger. What are you afraid of? Duan Muyun remained as steady as an old dog, his expression calm. He sat cross-legged, a long, thin, cold blade resting on his knees, vibrating and radiating a sharp, sword intent. It's still the same old saying, if one comes, I'll kill one, if two come, I'll kill a pair. Duan Muyun stroked the cold blade, revealing a sinister smile. They're dead, which means the stronger the one who comes, the better. My long wait wasn't in vain. That's right, with senior brother Duan Mu here, we're not afraid of a single thing. Seeing this, the disciples felt a little relieved. In their opinion, although Duan Muyun's mind was somewhat flawed, he was truly ruthless when it came to killing people. The title of Madman wasn't entirely unfounded. Moreover, they looked towards the sleeping beauty in the distance. And there was this stunningly beautiful woman. This woman wielded her charm, and even the many powerful figures from the Taijuan Holy Land had to kneel at her feet. She was the most powerful man-blendering machine. The formation is broken. At this moment, the late summer spirit trembled, and the compass in his hand shook incessantly. A radiant light rose, finally tearing open a large gap in the formation's command array. Break through the encirclement. Inside the ancient cave, a loud shout rang out, and a young man with an extremely tragic figure rushed out. His phoenix eyes swept across the entire field, his expression solemn, and he shouted loudly. It was the Taijuan Holy Sun from before, Ti Tong. Following closely behind were more than 10 young men in tattered clothes, exhausted from being trapped for so long. However, they still managed to muster their spirits. Breaking through the encirclement is fine, but 100 or 200 people can't escape. A young man from Taijuan smirked, shaking his head full of hair, and laughed casually. His name was Tan Sudat. In the Taijuan sacred land, there was an elite figure, known as the Dashing Gentleman. We, disciples of the Taijuan sect, are not afraid of death. Having avoided them for so long, I've long wanted to rush out and fight these despicable yin-yang sect scoundrels to the death. Death is death, but before I die, I'll take a few people down with me. 18 years from now, I'll be a brave man again. 10 Taijuan disciples looked around in all directions, their fighting spirit burning fiercely. They knew Ti Tong's intention. He wanted them to cover their escape, protecting them from the encirclement. Ti Tong was so moved that tears welled up in his eyes. Don't cry. Your strength is great. You have the best chance of breaking through. You can cry when you're buried here. Hey, give me some more paper money to burn. I'm afraid I won't have enough money to marry a wife when I die. You know, dowry is too expensive these days. The dozen or so people spoke up, unconcerned. Their eyes, however, shone with determination and resolve. Around them, the disciples of the yin-yang sect rose to their feet, their eyes filled with murderous intent, their demonic energy surging like smoke, encircling the place tightly. Ha ha ha, how touching. So, marry a wife, before you die, I'll fulfill your wish. Kaji approached, a frown and a smile playing on her lips, teasing their hearts. I don't like making jokes, and ha ha ha, where did you learn to crow like a rooster? The Taijuan disciples all closed their eyes, one of them scoffing. Interesting, Duan Muyun. I'm going to sleep with this man. Don't let him die. Kaji giggled. She loved to rape. Ti Tong, only you seem to have any sense here. Go ahead and attack. Duan Muyan stood up, his eyes terrifying, demonic energy surging, and he charged forward with his single sword. Behind him, a strange phenomenon erupted. A grotesque demonic had emerged from the depths of the sea, overwhelming the 8 deserts and striking fear into everyone's hearts. Evil, cold, and insane. A demonic Tao body. His face grew even paler, a sickly madness lurking in his eyes. Seeing this, the Yin-Yang sect disciples refrained from attacking. Competing with Duan Muyan for the prey would be suicidal. I'll fight you, and then let them go. They pose no threat to you. Titang's body glowed with a luminous light, his form like Liuli, a type of glass, a colossal figure merging, with him behind him, making him appear like a celestial being. Having become the previous Taijuan Saint Sun, his physique was extraordinary, possessing a unique white body and icy, jade-like bones. With the phenomenon merging, his defensive and explosive power reached terrifying levels. If you die, they will die too. Duan Muyan revealed a sickly smile. Then I'll take your lives and force Yi and Yang sect disciples to step aside. Titang's expression was cold as he took a step forward, his figure like lightning. Demon Shadow Blade. Duan Muyan laughed maniacally, slashing with his single sword. A black blade light, about 1,000 feet long, instantly struck Titang's fist, emitting a deafening explosion. Titang's black hair fluttered, his eyes clear, and he directly unleashed the Taijuan fist technique, instantly engaging Duan Muyan in combat. Black and white light intertwined, the air exploding, surrounded by swirling white mist. The ground and cliffs were torn apart. The destructive power was incredibly exaggerated. Duan Muyan is indeed strong enough. His combat power at the mid-stage of the Dao integration realm surpasses that of a late-stage cultivator. Yuan Kei's eyes were serious, filled with shock. He had originally been at the Rockstone mine, and upon receiving the news, he had led his men to rush here. Titang was injured in the previous attack and hasn't recovered much, but he can still hold his own against Duan Muyan. This Taijuan Saint Sun isn't someone to be trifled with. Late Summer shook his head. In terms of combat power, Duan Muyan was actually a notch weaker than Titang. After all, the latter was a Saint Sun. But Titang had already been injured, his combat power greatly reduced. Once the fight reached a certain point, his injuries would flare up, and sooner or later he would be killed by Duan Muyan. Titang, back in the Blood Cave trial, I wasn't your match. How come you're so weak now? Huh? Duan Muyan's eyes were fierce, his cold blade tearing through the sky, cutting a bloody gash in Titang's chest. Titang's face was grim, and he remained silent. Before, we both entered the righteous and demonic paths together. But what about now? If you had joined the Yin-Yang sect, you'd probably be on par with those guys. The Taijuan Holy Land is ultimately in decline. Duan Muyan revealed a sickly smile, his long, slender blade deflecting Titang's fist, advancing swiftly and piercing Titang's waist. Titang, already injured, had his wound suppressed and his injuries flared up, blood gushing from the corner of his mouth. Bang! A fist strike slammed into Duan Muyan's chest, causing the latter's chest to cave in. But Duan Muyan didn't care at all. In an instant, his injuries healed and demonic energy surged. Useless. My demonic cultivation has long since reached perfection. All injuries, I can heal in a moment, as long as there is enough blood. Kill! Yuan Ke, a disciple of the Yin-Yang sect, shouted, and nearly 200 people surrounded and attacked the 10 Taijuan disciples. Fight! Tansu and the others roared, his eyes revealed a death wish. But at this moment, one after another, figures like locusts swarmed in from afar, surrounding the place in an instant. 100 black muzzles of guns were aimed directly at the Yin-Yang sect demonic cultivators. Hehe! Lian Zhoubing and Li Kun walked over, looking at the demonic cultivators and laughing strangely. The three of them waved their hands. A dozen or so Taijuan scrolls lined up behind them, carefully dropping the spirit infants, afraid they would break. Each spirit infant fell to the ground and began to move towards the Yin-Yang sect demonic cultivators' camp. Cheer up, crawl faster. Your father is giving you encouragement. Little rascal, crawl over, go find those demonic uncles, blow them all up. Boom! Titang's punch sent Duan Muyan reeling, his internal organs churning, blood trickling from the corner of his mouth. He didn't have time to wipe away the blood, suddenly turning his head to look back. His heart pounded violently, and he was about to shout at Wuyan and the others to leave quickly. However, when he saw the dense crowd of about 500 or 600 Taijuan disciples behind him, he breathed a sigh of relief. You finally arrived. Tansu smirked, feeling a slight sense of relief. This didn't require risking his life. So many fellow disciples were enough to deal with these yin-yang sect demonic cultivators. Even if they were unkillable, forcing them to retreat was still perfectly fine. What a truly massive battle! Duan Muyan's expression was indifferent, showing no sign of panic. With his cultivation level, even if there were over 1,000 Taijuan disciples, he could still kill them all. After saying that, he glanced at the pile of spirit infants crawling towards him, paying no attention. Although he didn't know what these things were, he was very confident that he could handle everything. This is the border between Linzhou and Yangzhou, and my yin-yang sex branch isn't far away. You Taijuan sect members have sent so many people, aren't you afraid of coming but not returning? Yuan Ke sneered, showing no fear. Truly a great achievement. At least 500 or 600 Taijuan elites are here. If we kill all of them, Taijuan sect will basically collapse. Surely the sect elders would be very willing to send disciples to surround and kill these people here. At the end of summer, he immediately took out a jade talisman, muttered a few words, and crushed it. He was very excited. The more he thought about it, excitement ensued. The yin-yang sect's reward and punishment system was extraordinarily clear. As long as one was strong enough and performed meritorious deeds, they could obtain resources far exceeding those of their fellow disciples, and even receive great fortune. They could even engage in intimate relations with several female elders and supreme elders. Dual cultivation with such high-level figures, that kind of fortune was simply more potent than consuming a powerful elixir. This is truly dangerous. The newly appointed Saint Sunjiang swallowed hard. Long Eotian, beside him, stepped forward, declaring, I, Long Eotian, swear to protect Zhangbar to the death. It's all right, the Taijuan Holy Land's strength is nothing special. We have quite a few people, at most, we'll fight 2 against 2. If we fight to the death, we can hold out until the sect's reinforcements arrive. By then, these Taijuan disciples will all be dead. Late Summer chuckled, extremely excited. However, having ultimately emerged from the pile of corpses, he swiftly retreated into the ancient cave, controlling the cave's formation to guard against any eventuality. Previously, when he activated more than 10 protective formations, he hadn't truly destroyed them. As long as he controlled them, he could use them again. Retreat. Without a word, Titong directly led 10 disciples to retreat towards Huiyan's side. The 200 people of the yin-yang sect didn't stop them. They couldn't stop them anyway. You've arrived at just the right time. Retreat. There's no need to waste time here. If we delay until the yin-yang sect's branch arrives, it will be very difficult for us to leave. Titong immediately said, intending to retreat. He didn't want to risk rescuing his fellow disciples. Otherwise, he would be a sinner of the Taijuan Holy Land. Leave. Without killing all these people, I can't resolve the hatred in my heart. So many of our Taijuan disciples have died. We must avenge them. Wu Yan said coldly, unmoved, counting carefully. Over 1,000 of their fellow disciples had been hunted and killed during this time. All of them future pillars of Taijuan. Kill them all. How? Those people are fighting desperately. Their combat power has skyrocketed. Before their reinforcements arrive, how many can we kill? A young man beside Titong gaped, speechless, doubting he had heard correctly. The others nodded in agreement, not out of fear of death, but out of concern for the arrival of reinforcements. If over 1,000 people arrived, a bloody battle would ensue, and Taijuan would suffer from bloodshed. It's all right, Wu Yan waved his hand. Now is not the time for heroism. Even if you don't care about your own life, you must cherish the lives of our fellow disciples. Tidong frowned. He was very familiar with these fellow disciples, but his strength wasn't yet at the point of eliminating them. A scholar separated for 3 days must be seen with new eyes. Kill. Wu Yan smirked, waving his hand. Clang, clang, clang. In an instant, the calm was shattered. Loud gunshots rang out, and countless bullets, like a waterfall, rained down on the 200 demonic cultivators. The mountaintop was blown apart, rocks flying everywhere, the dense firepower terrifying. What kind of devil is this? A group of demonic cultivators were stunned, a strong sense of danger making their hair stand on end. Here, all were elites of the yin-yang sect, their reactions incredibly swift, each bringing out various protective artifacts and spiritual treasures to protect themselves. King ding ding! The spiritual treasures vibrated violently, clanging and rattling. Those holding protective artifacts, due to their low defensive power, were directly torn apart by the dense barrage of bullets. Damn it! They panicked, hastily unleashing their divine abilities. Unfortunately, as soon as they unleashed their abilities, they were immediately engulfed by the overwhelming firepower. Instantly riddled with holes, blood escape, demon escape, any kind of escape technique couldn't escape this devastating firepower. In an instant, more than 20 people were dead. How is this possible? What kind of spiritual treasure is this? How can the firing speed and power be so strong? Those holding defensive spiritual treasures were terrified by this sight. Their arrogance was instantly crushed. At this moment, a spiritual infant circled around the defensive spiritual treasure and crawled to the side of a young man. This is... The young man was stunned, staring at the spirit infant repeatedly. He couldn't understand what it was. They said a spirit infant could be cultivated. He had never heard of a spirit infant escaping from the body to play. Then, boom! The spirit infant was blown away, and the young man was sent flying into the air, his screams echoing through the clouds. Shoot! Wu Yan roared, leading the Gatling gun in a barrage of fire at the young man in the air. In an instant, the young man in the air was like a Michelin tire, directly blown up and killed on the spot. Bang, bang, bang. One after another, figures were blown into the air by the spirit infants. The Taijuan disciples raised their guns and fired, turning the area into a beehive of bullets. Change the ammunition. Wu Yan roared again. The gunfire ceased abruptly, replaced by the rhythmic screeching sound of reloading, and the intense firepower surged once again. They were like emotionless killing machines, their distance from the destroyers reduced to nothing more than a pair of sunglasses. Brothers, come out and cleanse. Li Kun led his bomb squad forward, unleashing a barrage of spirit infants, delivering a deadly bombardment. Boom! Boom! Following the mournful cries, one after another, elite heavenly human realm warriors were blown to pieces. In an instant, this small mountain range was leveled to the ground, with only an ancient cave dwelling remaining standing, as if forcibly impregnated, emitting unbearable screams of agony. This was a groundbreaking way of fighting. This extremely cruel method of cleansing, this frenzied scene. Directly confront the demonic cultivator and fight him in his dreams. Kasi, Hon Mi Sivan, and Vianka, these powerful figures were also somewhat stunned. Their heads were filled with question marks. Who am I? Where am I? What happened? This, Tian, Kim HCC, and other disciples of the Taihan sect who had just escaped from the ancient cave were all bewildered, like stunned moles.